Ms. Waller, is Mr. Wingate on? Will he come on? He's on? Okay. How will I know that? If he needs to speak, am I able to do that? Okay. Okay. All right, well, this is just my first time with him doing that, so, okay. Okay, everybody, good morning. This is the regularly scheduled meeting on July 14th, 2022 of the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections meeting. We are going to call the meeting, I'm going to call the meeting to order right now and ask for approval of the agenda. If there are any additions.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Everybody good with that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. The agenda's approved. We're going to now do public comment. I've got speaker's card. I've got one walking in. I'd ask everybody to turn your cell phones off, please. And also, you get 2 minutes. So at 30 seconds, Ms. Robinson's going to kind of flag me, and I'm going to announce 30 seconds, and that means wrap up your sentence, not wrap up your statement. We want to give everybody their 2 minutes. Do you want to hand me that card? Or pass it along? Thank you. Appreciate that. First speaker is going to be Lauren Waits, and just for process, Sandra Burkhart is second. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Right there, state your name, where you live, and go. I don't think we can hear that. Is that mic not on?
I don't think it's on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I restart my 2 minutes?
Yes.
My name is Lauren Waits. I've lived in Fulton County and voted in Fulton County for 23 years. I'm here only speaking on behalf of myself, but I had the very positive experience of coordinating the volunteers for the Democrats for the ballot duplication and vote review process during the primary and the primary runoff. I just want to keep telling y'all that that was a great experience. For example, walking in this morning, I saw several people whose political beliefs I disagree with, but I like them very much personally, and we've worked together effectively. So I just want to remind everybody that we're here to keep helping, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Burkhart's next, and after that, Mr. Ferguson. Good morning.
My name is Sandra Burkhart. I live in Fulton County, and I'm embarrassed that something can be recertified without any facts or data to recertify. It is embarrassing to be part of a county where one man's opinion is more important than data. And I'm also embarrassed when people from other countries are involved in our elections in strategic positions. And I find it very disappointing when someone that's not on the ballot gets more votes than someone that's on the ballots in Fulton County. I think these things should be looked into before things are certified. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ferguson, and after him, Ms. Whitehouse.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, I'm Earl Ferguson. I'm a registered voter. I live in Atlanta, and I'm not submitting any challenges today, but I'm familiar with most of those that are being submitted, and I have some comments on them, and they deal really with the question of what is a residence, where does a person live. Georgia law, section 21-2-217, contains rules for determining residence. Some of those rules are clear, but many of them are subjective and require some judgment. So that if you're doing a challenge, you have to make some judgment, and if you're the registrar, you have to make judgments, and those judgments don't always agree. I'm suggesting that the board establish a working group outside of the challenge and public hearing status to review those issues and maybe come up with some guidelines as to how that they will be interpreted. It will save time on the part of the registrars, it will save time on the part of the challengers, and it will certainly eliminate some possibility that a voter challenge might receive a notice when it's not justified. So I'm suggesting that as an organization, and I'm volunteering my time to assist if you decide to take my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Whitehouse is next, and after her, Mr. Hobbs.
My name is Kathy Whitehouse, and I've lived in Atlanta for 25 years, and I'm just now kind of becoming really familiar, or somewhat familiar, with the elections process. So I'm here because I looked over the Board of Commissioners agenda for yesterday, and it talked about $11 million going to staff the upcoming elections. And from what I've been reading, I see that there was a Carter Jones report that stated that the Fulton County elections, I'm quoting here, I'm not addressing anyone specifically, but that the Fulton County elections lack quality temp workers, including hiring out-of-state poll workers during the most recent primary, which I did see at my poll place. And they don't really have a connection to the community, so kind of implicitly, they cannot be as concerned about the integrity of our elections, and it's kind of public knowledge across the country that everybody's kind of looking at Georgia elections. I'm also concerned that there's Happy Faces written down there as one of the temp agencies. Again, having read an article that was about an internal audit that the Fulton County did, Natalie Hall stated that we've been fired for less. It's my understanding that Happy Faces had to fire some of their several employees because they were caught shredding voter applications. And on the flow chart that I was looking from the Board of Commissioners meeting, they have Happy Faces responsible for registration data entry. So I'm not sure if I really feel comfortable with that relegation.
30 seconds, please.
Also, I know that people will reinterpret this, but there is an organization called Now, and in that organization, they're responsible for helping to fund Happy Faces, and one of the candidates in Georgia does have a relationship with the NOW account, and so that does seem like a little challenge there too. So I think we should carefully consider
Time's
how
up.
we are.
Thank you.
There you go.
Appreciate it. Mr. Hobbs is next, and after that, Mr. Muldowney.
Thank you. My name is Cliff Hobbs. I live now in Cherokee County, but I've born and raised here in Fulton County, lived here for 60 years. I first voted in 1968, so I've got all y'all beat from time. And elections used to be, people could count on them. Election integrity was not in question. Now it is. There's a whole lot of folks who don't trust the process. And then we're going to hire outside people to work in elections. $11 million, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I went to a recruiting fair out in Roswell, signed up to work an election 2 months before the election, never heard a word from anybody. So Saturday before the Tuesday election, I get a call at home from somebody in Fulton County who says, "We really need help. Can you be an assistant poll manager on Tuesday?" I said, "Okay." I sat there for 3 hours and watched videos. And so I go in and you know, where does this money come from, or how is it used to hire temporary people? Go to the mayors in each of these towns and get them to recruit people. You will not have a problem finding people to work in the polling places, and it isn't going to cost you $11 million. It is not. It's just, you know, common sense. Go to the grassroots of where the people live and where they are, and you can find all the poll workers that you want. And then you don't have to worry about out-of-state people, out-of-town people who have no vested interest in how the process works at all.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you, ma'am.
Let's see. Mr. Muldowney is next, and then Ms. Ortiz.
My name is Kevin Muldowney from Milton, Georgia.
Would you please speak directly into the microphone? It's hard to hear you.
Kevin Muldowney from Milton, Georgia. I listened to Nadine Williams' PowerPoint presentation regarding increasing the temp agency spending for the November elections. Included in the proposal is $11.8 million for Happy Faces to, among other duties, instruct and implement voter registration. The same Happy Faces that saw two of their employees fired by the county for illegally shredding voter applications. The same Happy Faces that Carter Jones report was highly critical of, and the same Happy Faces that an audit commissioned by the county found glaring problems and flaws. And Happy Faces does have financial ties through their reliance upon Now account to pay the temp workers to Stacey Abrams. It has also come to light that Happy Faces recently hired disgraced Spalding County Elections Director, Marcia Ridley, who was fired by Spalding County for serious management issue following the 2020 elections. The reality is we should not be using any temp agencies to staff our elections. We have eager, qualified Fulton County residents ready, willing, and able to work all aspects of the election. The BRE has made somewhat of an effort in this direction, but there are many who tell us they never got a call back or they inquire at the polling place to how they could get a position. The BRE needs to expand its outreach to include early voting, voter tabulation, all of the aspects of voting. And many of these workers supplied by the temp agencies for the primary were from out of county and out of state. It seems it would be a whole lot easier if we were to use fully transparent paper ballots and simple tabulating equipment. Our Canadian neighbors to the north employ such a system to great success. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz is next, and after that, Ms. Frazier.
My name is Susan Ortiz. I received a call from the Elections Department on June 8th that a complaint was made against me. I will read it verbatim. It was brought to my attention that on May 20th, 2022, that you, Susan Ortiz, one of the assistant managers assigned to the Alpharetta Branch Library, removed an ABA from one of the previous day's work and looked up a voter on social media to find out personal information. In addition, took a photo of the application before returning it to the retention box. This is a completely fabricated allegation, and based on that, I was no longer allowed to be assistant manager for the runoff, but could work as a poll clerk. I was essentially declared guilty before being proven innocent. I was told that this was a very serious allegation and they would investigate it. When I arrived for setup day, it was confirmed that I was demoted. And furthermore, I would not just be an ordinary clerk. I could only be stationed at a scanner or be line monitor. This is unfair and unethical treatment. A week later, I inquired as to the investigation. Another week passed, and finally I was told the case was forwarded to the Secretary of State. I want to know if anyone corroborated the claim or if they have any evidence. I worked hard for 19 consecutive days during
30
the
seconds.
primaries. I did all the Excel spreadsheets, checked in hundreds of voters, gave civics lessons to a voter who complained his congressman was not on the ballot, when 3 other workers, including the manager, could not figure it out. I helped voters find their sample ballots if they were in the notebooks. If not, I printed a couple for the elderly, including a Mrs. Raffensperger, whose name didn't even ring a bell, to 3 of the clerks, including 2 who were hired from Alabama. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Frazier is next, and after that, Mr. Frazier.
Good morning, Lucia Frazier.
Could you pull that microphone up just a little bit? Thank you.
Okay. I really believe it's time to find ways to cost reduce everywhere we can in our election and registrations. Lots of people are showing up to the BOC asking for money for various charities. Those charities may or may not be effective. Either way, there's no more money to squeeze out from the taxpayers. We're about to go dry, and you'll be caught off guard with no money at all. You need to start right now on inventing a new process using the cheapest and most secure methods to run an election. For Election Day, I suggest print the ballots at the precinct as people check in, use pencils and simple scanners that scan the pencil marks to create a tally, then hand count just one major race at each precinct to verify the scanner tally. For early voting, those ballots should be delivered to a special precinct just for early voting and hand counted to verify the scanner memory cards. Let's stop adding registrations without checking for death, non-commercial address, and duplicates. For early voting, we should post on the website the running total votes at each precinct each day, with the expected final total average from previous elections so people can see how busy it might be and they can level load that. Last thing, I think Happy Faces is going to cause us problems again. There are some great team members, but the company itself has shown that they just don't have They don't keep financial records, they don't pay on time, and I just think it's gonna cost us more money and time to deal with that. So think about that when you guys are hiring.
30
Thank you.
seconds, thank you. Mr. Frazier is next, and after that, Ms. Taylor.
Hello, good morning. I wanted to read a few lines from a 2018 State Board of Elections meeting. So this is from Judge Simpson, and I quote, "I think it is very clear in the law that you have to have a physical address to vote. You can't use a post office box, isn't that correct?" Mr. Lewis replies, "Yes, sir, that is correct." Mr. Lewis was the chief investigator at the time. Further in this meeting, Chris Harvey is quoted, "The voter registration system is designed so that way addresses are recognized as either residential or commercial, and it is designed to prevent somebody from being registered at a commercial address." So that begs the question, why are there 1,000+ registrations that have been submitted in your inbox that are at UPS boxes, gas stations, MARTA stations, a multitude of different commercial addresses, okay? If the system is designed that way, I don't know, I haven't seen the system, I'm just reading what this says. Why are we not following the system? My understanding also is that the system is designed to catch duplicate registrations. I have found 13,000 duplicate registrations so far, and we're just starting, okay? They're not catching it, somebody's not catching it. Having duplicate registrations easily opens up fraud because they have multiple registration numbers, which means they have multiple ballots if they ask for them, or they could vote multiple times, and some people have. Okay, I don't want this, I hope you guys
30
don't want
seconds,
this either.
thanks.
So all I'm looking for is have a clean voter roll. And anyone that doesn't want clean voter rolls clearly wants a dirty election. Dirty voter rolls equal dirty elections. I'm here in a bipartisan manner. I want this to be clean, and I hope everyone from all sides wants this to be clean. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor?
Good morning to everyone. I'm
Good
Tracy
morning.
Taylor, a resident of Fulton County. I received a letter, and it was in reference to my voting rights being challenged. And the challenger is Jason Frazier. Jason Frazier, okay. I need to know why my voting rights are being challenged, Jason Frazier, and would like to address you personally. I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I use a post office box. When I left my father's house, he told me, as a single female, you need to have a post office box so that no one knows where you live, unless you want them to know where you live. Receiving this letter reminded me of my father's instructions, and it just raises a red flag in reference to protecting oneself from perverts. I am concerned about my well-being and a man sending me a letter in reference to my voting address. And I have reason for having a post office box. It is for protection, and I am currently homeless. And in reference to what Mr. Frazier said, and for people that use a post office box, it's likely because they are homeless, Jason Frazier, and no one's rights should be eliminated because they are going through a current struggle. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that concludes our public comment for today. We will return to the agenda. Next up would be approval of the minutes. You know, I'm still not seeing Mr. Wingate on the screen. Is he present at this meeting? Oh, he was on the screen. I'm sorry. I was paying attention to the speaker, so I didn't actually see him until now. He was up there.
I did see him last time. He was on the screen before.
All right. What?
I'm listening.
Oh, you're there. Oh, you can hear us. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
We
I
can't
can.
see. We can't see you. So.
Yeah, oh, you can't.
Oh, you're
okay.
right behind me.
it's
That's
been
why I
kinda
can't see
funny.
you.
I don't have a lot of volume listening to you all either, just so you know.
All right. We'll all try to speak directly into the
That's
mic.
fine. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm here. Thank you.
Next up is old business, the approval of the minutes. We have 4 to approve, the regular meeting on June 9th, and then the subsequent special called meetings on the 16th, 21st, and 27th. We can take these as a group or separately if there's corrections to be made.
From what, I've looked at them, and from what I've seen, I don't see any corrections unless I've missed something. So I would make a motion to approve all of them in one motion.
Okay, before we get a second, I just want to make sure nobody else has a correction.
Is anybody else?
We good?
Mark?
Okay. All right.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Looking for a second then.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor of adopting the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? There are none. The minutes are adopted. Now we'll turn it over to Nadine Williams, our interim director for the monthly operations report.
Madam Chairman, before you all do that, I just wanted to make certain that the records, the minutes reflect that Mr. Wingate is able to participate remotely for these consecutive meetings due to medical leave. There is a statute that limits the number of meetings that you can actually be counted for as being present, and he's exceeded that but for the medical exception. And it just needs to be reflected in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Williams.
Good morning, Chair, board members. We will start the operation reports. The first page is in page 30 of your packets. And I will go division by division. It will start with the absentee division, given their own report. Good morning, board members.
Good morning.
In the month of June, we conducted the primary runoff elections. We met with a few vendors, OPEX, HB Solution, TANEL, and Blue Crest, as well as Pitney Bowes. We also spoke with our liaison at the USPS Postal Service. For the runoff election, the ballots accepted was 2654. Ballots rejected was 280. Undeliverable ballots was 27 for a total of 2961. And that will conclude. Administration.
Wait. There's a whole second page there on page 31 of the report. Are there things in there you'd like to call out for us?
It just outlined the June election, that information.
Okay. I've got a question, but anybody
Sure.
else have a question first? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I said okay.
You're good? Okay. I'll just start. Ms. Crawford, do you have any questions about this? Let's keep those phones off, please. Thank you. Questions over here?
I have a quick question,
Okay.
just for record purposes.
Yep.
How many Uocava votes did we have?
In the runoff elections, what we received was, it was either 19 or 20, but I can follow up after this meeting and give you the exact number.
I'm sorry, it's my volume's a little low there. 319 or
No.
320?
19.
19.
Yes,
19.
yes.
Got it. Thank you.
On the ballots rejected, it's 223 plus 57. Would you tell me what that breakdown means?
The 223 is the ballots that we received after the election, and the 57 was for various other reasons. Signature, no date of birth, just missing identifying information.
Okay, any other questions?
So it was was it posted too late, or it took too long to get from the post office?
Any ballot we receive has to be in our office on election day by 7 p.m.
Okay.
Anything after is rejected. So there's no regard to postmark. That only applies to voter registration.
Okay, thanks, Mariska.
Relative to the vendor meetings that you had, you want to give us any kind of, are there issues there, or are there, is that
Meeting
regular
with
contract renewal?
OPEX they were just doing some maintenance on the cutters. with HB Solution. It was regarding the envelopes, receiving envelopes that we had ordered. Tatno has contacted them regarding ordering the ballots. And Blue Crest was just to get some information. It's with Pitney Bowes, they came out and they serviced the, what is it, the meter? The meter, yeah, that does the time stamping for the ballots.
Okay, great, thank you.
And along those lines, will we be using all of these vendors or solutions when we get ready for November? Is that the plan?
Can I provide that answer to you in August?
Okay,
Please?
okay.
Thank you. But most of them, yes.
Okay, all right, we'll move on to administration.
Good morning, Board. During the month of June, we continue to work.
Mr. Eskridge, you're going to need to speak really close into that microphone so we can.
Is that better?
Very good, thank you.
How's that? Okay. During the month of June, we continue to work on filling the following positions. What this report does not reflect, we did have to repost the majority of these positions to kind of attempt to try to provide a better pool of applicants. But we are closer, and hopefully next month we will be having the majority of these filled, so we're preparing for the interviews for most of these positions. The campaign contribution disclosure report was also due last month at the conclusion. The extended deadline was until the 8th of this month, but again, that has closed out. We've continued to prepare the upcoming November and December runoff budgets, along with the purchasing items, retrieving the specs and quotes for various items needed for the upcoming elections. And to conclude, we also have been working with the cities who will be posting questions and races for the November election. So we've been working on issuing those IGAs to those respective cities. And that concludes the administration report for the month of June.
Okay, great, thank you. Questions? Ms. Crawford?
Question on the elections budget. So that is complete now? You've completed that now?
In what manner, ma'am?
Okay, all right, so so the operations budget is the $4,391,000?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
So the thing that has not been a part of the budget since the beginning of the year when the budget was approved by the Board of Commissioners is the provision for financing the general election runoff that one would anticipate that we would have in this state. So that will have to be brought in from other aspects of the county budget. That is the budget they're operating under.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Ruth?
Mr. Eskridge, can you tell me which of these you said of the positions are having to be reposted?
Yes, ma'am. So the registration manager, we reposted. It did close out last week. So we're reviewing the registry for that. The VEO specialists, we're actually working with HR and finance currently to get that posted. The absentee officer, it did post, but we did repost it again. That also closed out last week. And the registration officer just posted again yesterday.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, any questions? Okay, sorry. Mr. Wingate, any questions? Wherever you are, there you are. I think you might be on mute. Okay, I'm assuming you don't have any questions.
Sorry, I'm having a very difficult time hearing. I don't know what that is, but I'm kind of leaned up to listen.
All right, but no questions on this particular topic?
I do not at this point, no.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move to advanced voting.
Ms. Benjamin is on bereavement leave, so I will cover advanced voting. For the advanced voting division, we are attempting to secure 35 advanced voting locations for the November election, and we'll present that to the board at the August 11th meeting. We will also be conducting roundtables with advanced voting poll managers, compliance officers to get their feedback in regards to processing improvements.
Any questions? I'll start. Mr. Wingate, do you have any questions? I'll start with you.
No, thank you.
Okay. Is it I'm sorry, I'm just jumping in. Do y'all have any questions? Okay. Is it possible that we could look for an early voting location on the southeast side of the city? We have an awful lot of new residents. I live over there, and my early voting location kind of requires me to cross I-20 to get to a location, which I can do, and I do, but I think there's a substantial number of voters in that particular area. Like, is it possible to use the
Are you stating like near Ponce de Leon in that area, or?
No, more like Grant Park, Ormwood Park.
Okay, we can look into that, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
I'd be happy to help.
I believe we have allocated 36 sites in the budget, so if we can go to 36, we can possibly do that. And
Okay, if not, obviously, we'll make the trek, but
Right.
more and more getting over I-20 is,
Okay, yes, because we're trying to fill a hole in north of Milton Library. We're trying to secure a location up there. It's hard to find a location, but we're working on that.
okay.
There's also 2 areas in the south that we want to cover, and we'll work that in to also get to 30. We'll try to get to 36.
Okay, great, thank you. Other questions? Okay, we'll move to elections.
For the elections division, we are reconfirming polling locations for the November election. They're all reserved, and we're just giving a reminder to all the facilities that we are coming in November. All the municipalities were contacted to remind them of if they're going to place any items on the ballot, that there is a call for election deadline, which is 90 days prior to an election that is in conjunction with a statewide election. We have received information from the municipalities that will have questions on the ballot and we have been forwarding that information to the SOS ballot builder to start building the ballot. Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And the ones that have submitted information will be presented for approval in this meeting today.
Okay. Questions? It references that we'll do polling location meetings, polling location changes at this meeting today?
Yes, we will.
We're going to do that? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Information systems?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, information systems, for the month of May, we did conduct logic and accuracy and voting equipment for advanced voting and election day. And we did introduce a new standard operating procedure to ensure like all compact flashcards were uploaded on the EMS server. And we did train the system specialist on how to report issues, assign issues, and appropriately follow up on these issues on ticket on WebEOC. And during the month of May, we did adequately use the new inventory system to allocate, assign, and seal those equipment going out for election day and advanced voting. In month of May, we also had to relocate voting equipment to a new warehouse from the Wilson Road to the new warehouse at Philip Lee Drive. So we worked with logistics and the IT department to move those voting equipment and move the IT infrastructures that were installed at Wilson Road to Philip Lee Drive. And also Election Central, for Election Central, information system staffs, we began working with IT department and the DREAM department to make sure we have the basic IT infrastructures needed at Election Central. And we evaluating the current hardware and applications that we use in the department. And we're working diligently with the IT department to make sure we have every IT infrastructure needed at Election Central. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to talk through a couple of these issues, but I'll ask my colleagues if you have questions before I start. I'll start with Mr. Johnson. Do you have any questions? Okay. Mr. Wingate, did you have questions?
I'm
Okay.
fine, thank you.
You know, one of the things that I think is helpful about these meetings is when we can share information about process and update on specific things that are happening. And there's a tremendous amount of work that's happening in this department that I want to share with people. So one of the things on the web EOC, and please correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things we ask people to do if they are having problems in elections, poll manager, poll workers and things, is to report them through a centralized number so that we can track the problems that are occurring and kind of understand what the trends are. So I just want to put that out there, that when we ask people sometimes to default to a number to call, it's so that we can track them. You know, sometimes people will call me or other board members, and then we have to either make the effort to make that connection, or you know, maybe that doesn't happen, or they call somebody else like a board of commissioners. So I would just encourage people to understand that system and help us with that. The election warehouse relocation has been a massive effort on the behalf of the staff, and again, one of the things I think that doesn't become apparent is all the work that goes on behind the scenes to get ready for elections that maybe don't get in the public eye. So earlier in the year, the folks that own the building where our elections equipment is stored notified us that our lease was over and we wouldn't be renewing it. And so we have had a very challenging time to find a temporary space to move to. There are lots of landlords that, under the controversy of elections right now, that don't particularly want to do leases with anybody having anything to do with elections. And it is also very complex to find a space that can both house what we need, you know, have the number of loading banks for us to get in and out of, the power needs. And so we have finally located a temporary space, but the staff has been very busy making that space usable for the November election. So I just want to kind of give a shout out to our IT department and the rest of the staff for this effort, because it is not insignificant. And for those of you who've been to our warehouse and understand the processes, you will understand how stressful this has been to find a location. The ultimate solution to this problem that we have is that Fulton County is building a purpose-built election center building that will house all of our operations. It will house all of our equipment, our storage, our training, our staff, because people are located in multiple different locations, and it becomes, you know, as y'all know, because we're Fulton County residents, you know, even just to drive from one location to the other can sometimes be a half-day effort depending on the time. So we had hoped that that building would be fully usable by now, but again, as we all know, because of supply chain issues and construction issues and all the things that are impacting every other business in the world right now, those have experienced delays, but the building is underway. We don't expect that it will be fully operational until next year, though we still hold on to a glimmer of hope that some aspects of our work will be there by the fall, but I'm not terribly optimistic about that. Again, no fault of anybody, but when you can't get plywood, you can't get plywood, right? But this is a very exciting thing because we'll have training facilities, we'll have ways for people to observe that will be clear and comfortable, and we will all know where everything is at any given point in time. So I'm excited about that, but again, understand that this staff, particularly the administrative side of the staff and the IT side of the staff, is very busy working with the construction company on the particular specs of you know, the build out now, because we're on the internal side of the build out, not so much, you know, the external side. So I'm excited about that. We'll have more reports on that as time goes on, but this looks to be a relatively short report, but it is not reflective of the massive amount of work that the team's doing, which will pay off for all of us as we move into the primary as well as into future elections. So thank you. Other questions, comments relative to that? Mr. Wingate? Okay, all right. Okay, we'll go on to recruitment and training.
So for recruitment and training, we are going to be conducting roundtables for poll manager feedback. Again, a newsletter will be sent out today with the link for poll managers to sign up to, if they want to participate in the roundtables. We are working with finance and IT to streamline some of our payroll processes. We'll have a meeting in regards to that in the upcoming weeks. Poll worker training, I don't have the date in front of me, I'm sorry. We'll begin, I believe, in September. And we still have the kiosks available for any poll workers that want to come and get one-on-one training if they have any questions in regards to training. But we are ready to get ready to start that up for the November election. And recruitment, we will be branching out to different organizations. Our voter education team is assisting us with having recruitment fairs, and we will be trying to contact other organizations as well to recruit poll workers. And I'll give you a report about that in the upcoming weeks.
Okay. Questions? Ms.
And
Crawford?
the kiosk is here.
Yes, it is.
It's here. And so who, they need to call the office?
Yes, they can, there's an email that'll be on the newsletter for them to set up an appointment if they
Okay.
would like to do that. It's
Great,
also on the portal where they sign up for regular training. It's always there for them to call the number to set up an appointment if they want to do that.
Okay.
It's been very active.
Great, thank you.
So just to clarify, what is the purpose of the kiosk?
For any poll workers, manager or clerk, any position who has gone to training and they're confused about anything, they can come back and get supplemental training one-on-one to help them with any issues that they have. We also are reviewing poll managers' work to see if they had any errors or any things that they did not do 100% correctly, and calling them in to say, let's go ahead and do this one-on-one so you can make sure you did it correctly next time.
Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Is there a manual or a pamphlet or booklet that the poll workers can take away? Because I know they may sit in the class or they sit there and they do it. For some people, it may be too fast or something, and they get an opportunity to go back and read. I don't know if it's electronic or they can take some physical paper.
We give all poll workers, all positions, a poll worker manual. They receive that. I don't know if we're going to update it for November. Well, actually, we will update it for November, but they do receive a manual. And an electronic copy of the manual is also on the portal. They can log in and click on those pages and review that if they want to. But they get a hard copy and there's an electronic copy.
Okay.
Dr. Ruth?
And Nadine, thank you so much for taking the time to do these roundtables. I think they'll be very informative and will show us areas where we can improve our training and provide the poll workers with the necessary skills and support that they need. Can you talk a little bit about what will happen after those roundtables as far as any revisions to the training manuals and that process?
Right, so we are having the roundtables at the end of this month. That will be able to get their feedback and in constructive criticism, and we will implement anything that we want to put into the training materials. So we're having it purposely early, so before anything gets printed, so we can implement those changes if need be.
And have you identified like master trainers that, one of the things with training is having a standardized training, so everyone is receiving the same materials and it's being conveyed the same way. And I'm just curious if you've identified like trainers who are like your master trainers that will be in place during the, to train poll managers. And
Yes, so all of our trainers are also poll managers. Mm-hmm. So we know that they know their material. They do a train the trainer before they go out and start teaching classes. So, and we do that every election. They're gonna sit down and go back over everything, so everybody's given the same exact instructions to all their classes. And we do have, again, on the portal, we're calling it now the Poll Worker University portal, that poll managers can go in or poll workers can give us feedback on the actual classes. When we are reviewing, that was up and live for the last training. And we've already taken those suggestions as well and put them into the training for the upcoming November election.
Okay, and then my last question has to do with, so if you were a poll manager, a poll worker before, you have to retrain. Is that correct?
Yes, by election code, you have to retrain again before November. It's mandatory.
Okay, great. And I do think, I like the idea of the one-on-ones, refreshers, those are great. So thank you.
Let's see. Mr. Wingate, did you have any questions about this section?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think one of the things, just for public information, is that all of us are very attuned to making sure that our recruitment and, sort of volunteer management and care and our training is as good as we can get. As many of you know, and maybe you don't know, we have 2,000 to 3,000 people who work in the course of any given election. Most of whom, come to us temporarily, come to us for the first time. It is a really large logistical issue, and we've discussed some of that. I think a couple things that I've communicated to staff that I'm interested in is to see that we have some standardization of communication to volunteers so that folks aren't receiving sort of different information or last-minute information. Again, given the moving target with COVID, changes, people dropping in, people dropping out, some of that is just by virtue of the complications going to happen. But I think, having a framework for regular communications up to and after Election Day is going to be an important thing for us to institute. And then the other thing that I hear a good bit about, and probably don't understand the process well enough, but we should talk about it maybe at some future meeting, is the challenges that we hear when people apply independently online versus the folks who come through personnel management companies or, some other thing. And I think trying to figure out how either there's a direct line into those personnel management companies or something else that makes that a little more unified process is something that I think we'd all like to see happen. And are we going to talk a little bit about the contract personnel companies when you do your report?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'll save my comments relative to that. Anything else, Mr. Johnson?
Quick follow-up question to that, and it was brought up during public comment this morning. We've already reached out to all the mayors in the city, in the county, from my understanding, about recruiting people from, or residents from their respective cities, correct?
Yes, we did do that before the May election. We emailed all city clerks to ask them if they were interested in having the recruitment fairs. For those that responded, we did hold fairs out. We did find people that wanted to participate. We reached out to those persons. Some of them, after finding out what the work entailed, declined, but we do have a log of everybody that was contacted from the recruitment fairs, and we plan to do it again for this election. Our voter education team is going to reach back out and start conducting recruitment fairs in all the cities that are interested.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? All right, thank you. Voter registration.
Good morning.
Morning.
As of June 30th, there were 841,038 voters registered in Fulton County. 740,385 were active. 1,653 were inactive. In the month of June, the registration division received...
Excuse me one second.
Sorry.
You said 1,000. I just want to correct it.
100.
Thank
My
you.
apologies.
Sorry, I just didn't want to get that too far down that road. Thank you.
Inactive is 100,653. In the month of June, we received 16,594 applications, bringing the total number of applications received this year to 74,329. In the month of June, we also just focused on ensuring that every voter was in the correct precinct and also registered with the correct district information. We are proud to say that the latest report over a week ago, we only had maybe 2,000 revisions to review, and they are now complete. So we are proud to say that every registered voter is in the correct precinct with the correct district information. We are currently and always attending training and hosting training. We've been meeting with the Blue Raster, which is our third-party vendor that ensures that they send us any necessary records that we need to take a look at. We also attended poll worker training and assist as poll workers for the June runoff election. We are currently, and in the month of June, attending state webinars and training sessions. That will conclude the monthly operations report for the registration division.
Questions? Start with you, Mr. Wingate. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just looking at Ms. Marshall's report. I noticed when we get into the completed voter registration applications process for June, there's no values in many of those areas. Is there a reason why there are no values?
Yes, sir, and my apology for not providing an explanation. I did. Numbers will increase in next month's operation report because basically, you know, after the VR deadline, we cannot begin to process applications until after credit for voting was given. So that star indicates that there is no number because we were not processing up until a week ago.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Okay. All right.
All right.
I have a question.
Okay.
You said the vendor is it Bluegrass?
Blue Raster.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about that vendor and how they're used again?
Sure. So Blue Raster came to us from first the Secretary of State's office were using them and offering their assistance to counties to make sure that everyone had the correct district information on a state level. So just Congress, Senate, and House. Nadine had a meeting with our executive team, and we are now in partnership with them to make sure that everyone is in the correct district on a county level as well. So to just ensure that everyone has the correct commission district, school board, Senate, House, state, every district. So it's just a partnership. And what they do is they receive our statewide file from us or the state. We send it to them. They bump it up against our GIS department. So everyone is working closely together. And then if anything does not add up, they send that list to us. We make the revision, and then we see the numbers go down.
It's right here. I mean,
Okay, thank you. And I see there were transfers out of county, 1466, and vital records, that's death for 173, okay.
So the reason for the transfers for out of county, the federal registration deadline was extended to the counties. After April 25th, it went to, I believe, May 23rd. So some applications were pulled from Fulton and vice versa to satisfy the federal election deadline. Vitals is inclusive of, death. We received those from our eNet dashboard, and also we read the obituaries from the AJC.
And we haven't received any removals from the Secretary of State?
You want to know how many is on our dashboard currently?
Well, they haven't sent us a list of removals.
Hold on one second. So currently, for vitals, we now have 2,000 vital records on our dashboard that we are processing.
Okay, 2,000, okay, thank you.
other questions? Ms. Crawford?
Since we've cleaned up all of our information for the voters, are we going to be sending out the cards?
Yes, we will ensure that everyone receives a precinct card ahead of the November election.
And do you have a date as to when you'd have that done by?
So currently, we have some precinct cards in which we are QCing every day to make sure they are correct. For the ones that are incorrect, we're gonna have to request a new batch, and sometimes the precinct cards take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks. So we are expecting to mail those out in addition to the head of household letter prior to advanced voting beginning.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? I just want to add a little commentary on two things. One, on the blue raster. So y'all will recall, BRE members, that probably for the last, since February, we have really, our team has worked incredibly hard on completing redistricting and updates and, in the midst of their regular work of voter challenges and regular voter registrations and things. And there are a number of systems that need to work together to make this an easy process, and that isn't happening yet, right? There's a different process that comes from the Secretary of State's information. There's information that we get from our own GIS department, and then there's the list that we manage. And so our team, again, was just working so incredibly hard, and I just want to give kudos to Ms. Williams and Ms. Marshall and the team for going ahead proactively and having quite a lot of meetings with the Secretary of State's office to try to figure out where the challenge was. I'll spare you the details, but the decision was made by the team to bring in a technology company to sort of resolve those issues so that the team was not just in this sort of cascading role of misinformation, feeding misinformation, and making their job very, very difficult. So congratulations on getting to the end of a process, and y'all still have hair and, all your limbs and everything else. So thank you for that, and thank you to all of the participants in making that happen. I had one other thing. I'm just trying as often as possible to provide more information and sort of processy stuff, but I have now forgotten the other thing that I was going to talk about, so I will let that go. No, we are seeing, y'all will recall that Department of Driver Services had changed the process that led us to a real significant drop from an average of 20 to 30,000 new voter registrations and address updates. They changed a process that dropped to about 6,000 to 8,000 a month. It's now back up to about 16. It's about half of the previous level from, probably the last 4 or 5 years. That was a really important change that our state leaders made when they let people, when folks automatically got their voter registration updated. And for those of you who are interested in clean voter rolls, I would hope we can continue some joint advocacy on making sure that folks don't have to opt in, that it's an automatic thing, because it really helps us keep the voter registration. So right now, we're still down about 15,000 address corrections a month, and it would be lovely if we could get back to the same level. But I will let that go, and without other questions, we'll move to supplies and logistics.
For supplies,
Let me just add to the chairperson's comment that it shouldn't be mistaken that in the past or even currently that all of the DDS records that we receive are, quote, new, end quote, registrations. It is a culmination of all of the various changes that can occur for an elector in terms of their voter information and status.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I mentioned. Okay, supplies and logistics.
For supplies and logistics, post-election equipment pickup has been completed. Staff is currently conducting inventory of supplies and preparing supplies for the November election. Again, they are reconfirming polling locations for Election Day. In regards to the absentee drop boxes, we will reevaluate where they will be placed once because of SB 202, they have to be placed inside of an advanced voting location. Once we determine where the 36 sites are located, we'll make sure that the absentee drop boxes are geographically spread out as much as we can throughout the county. I believe we're still limited to 7 because it's based on the number of active voters we have. I think we're at 700,000 for active, not registered, but active voters. But we'll present the absentee drop box locations to the board at the August meeting as well as the advanced voting locations.
Great, thank you. Questions? Okay, we'll move on to voter education and outreach.
For the month of June, I'm filling in for Miss Little for her report. She's
Get a
traveling.
little closer to that mic.
I said I'm filling in for Miss Little because she's traveling. So for the month of June in voter education, they conducted 24 deputy registrar trainings. They took in 35 voter registration applications, 22 applications for interest in poll workers. They issued 3 voter identification cards. They conducted a total of 25 voter education events and took in 34 absentee applications. They had, for the month of June, 200 connections for VO. This is the team reaching out to different community organizations, businesses, things of that nature to set up future events, and over 700, roughly 750 connections over the course of collectively all the events. As well as we provided a list of all the events that they attended, and as well as continuing updating the website for our future events. And that concludes the voter education outreach report.
Questions? Mr. Johnson, any? Dr. Ruth? No? Ms. Crawford?
I'm just working with a group of high school students, and hopefully we'll have schedule a registration for before school starts.
Okay. Mr. Wingate, question?
Yeah, thank you. This indicates that year-to-date, 376 poll workers have been recruited. Is that a firm number, and have these recruits been boarded, or what's the process for that?
So what that reflects is the poll workers recruited specifically by voter education and outreach.
Right.
They assist.
I got that.
Yes, sir. So that is reflective of the time that they completed this report is the 376. So
those are 376 poll workers that have been recruited through these efforts so far. So those people, we can then understand, will be actively working a poll coming up?
They will be added to the registry. Now, once they're contacted to work, I can't 100% say that they'll all work or accept the assignment, but yes, sir, they will be included in the registry for upcoming slots to be filled, if that answers the question.
One last quick question. What is our annual budget for VEO?
That I do not have in front of me, but I will get that information to you after this meeting, sir.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
I'm good. Thank you.
Other questions? No? Okay. We will move on to, sorry, what is the next? Oh, are we finished with the reports then?
Yeah, because polling places is under new business. So we're in new business now.
Okay. Well, let me just make sure. Ms. Williams, is there anything else you want to update us on?
No, ma'am, that concludes our monthly operations report.
Okay. All right, moving on to the vice chair election. As per our bylaws, we switch vice chairs according to political party appointment every July. And so Dr. Ruth has served, and thank you so much for all your hard work as vice chair. You've had quite a few special called meetings to manage during and before my appointment. So thank you for that. And so now there will be a new vice chair for the year, and I would ask for a nomination there.
Madam Chair, first I would also like to say thank you because I served as vice chair and I think I only had to do it once. You had to do it almost once every other month, but you did a great job. But Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to recommend Ms. Teresa K. Smith Terry Crawford as the Vice Chair of the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections for the upcoming year.
And I happily second that motion.
I'm surprised she didn't make it.
I'm assuming that you will accept that nomination, and it has been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You're not allowed to oppose.
I'm
Thank
not
you.
allowed to oppose.
Thank you.
You're not allowed to
That motion
oppose.
passes. Thank you so much for accepting that, and look forward to working with you in that position. The polling place changes, should we go to that?
Okay, congratulations, Ms. Crawford. Okay, we are requesting polling changes for 7 locations to be presented today. All relocations have been surveyed for handicap accessibility. The proposed changes were advertised in the legal organ and with the reason for the change noted in the legal organ. Upon approval, all voters affected will be notified via postal mail. For proposal 2022, precinct AP 05 will be relocated from Alpharetta High School. The renovations have been completed, so it'll return to Creekview Elementary School. For precinct JC03, that was at Abbott's Hill. The renovations have been completed at Finley Oaks Elementary School, therefore it will return to Finley Oaks. For precinct JC06, which was at Wilson Creek, the renovations have been completed, will be completed, I say that for all of them, they'll be completed by the November election. Per Fulton County Schools have told us they can return. So that will be returned to Northview High School. For SS02 A and B, at North Springs High School, the renovations have been completed, so that precinct will return back to Spalding Drive Elementary. For precinct JC09 at Taylor Road Middle, the school has advised they are unable to accommodate. Therefore, that precinct will be relocated to Chattahoochee High School. For precinct 07A1, 07D1, and 07M at Peachtree Road United Methodist Church, that precinct will go back to the church's main building. Since the main building has a different address than the gym, we have to officially put in the polling place change, but it will be at the Peachtree Road United Methodist main building. And for precinct 01T, Benton Elementary School, per APS, is going to be undergoing renovations. Therefore, that precinct will be moved to Thomasville Recreation Center. And that concludes our polling place proposals.
Okay. And do we need to accept those?
Yes, it's based upon your approval.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
I have a
Ms.
question.
Crawford?
Are we going to notify the managers of the poll managers of these locations that are at schools that they'll have to set up before Election Day? Because it isn't.
Well, no, for the last election, because it was by a holiday,
Yeah.
the Juneteenth holiday, we were told very late in the month that the school would not be open. They told us that, so managers could not go in that Monday. But now, since the November election is not near a holiday, we should be back as business as usual.
Okay.
And they'll be able to call the school to set up a time. We were just limited because of we were limited to have to change our Sunday pickup location because of Father's Day. The schools told us it would not be available to have staff there. And we were limited because of Juneteenth, there will be no staff there. But now there's no holiday by the November election. We should be fine.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yeah, boy, the elections for the primary and the primary runoff were just a cavalcade of holidays and special times that made our jobs even more hard, so thank you for that. Can I have a motion to accept these polling place change recommendations?
Make a motion to accept the changes.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. The motion carries. We're going to now do a briefing overview. Ms. Williams gave a briefing to the Board of Commissioners relative to the elections and some of our changes to the budget. Would you like to give us a top line on that?
Yes, it begins on page 55 of your packet. For the review that we did with the BOC yesterday, we just gave a brief summary of the successes and challenges in the June election, a summary of the November preparation, and of course, our proposal for temporary staffing. For the June election, we set a success with the polls opened on time. We had no wait times for advanced voting election day, and we had improvements in the call center and no technical or supply issues that were major. For challenges, of course, we had the holidays that we had to contend with. We had payroll processing that we're streamlining, and we were not able to implement emergency procedures for a gas leak at a particular poll, but we were able to get a court order to make up for the time for that poll to stay open, since they had to close for a brief moment due to a gas leak. In regards to preparations for the November election, we discussed that our temporary warehouse, we moved into a new secondary warehouse until Election Central is being built. We advised that we're seeking 35 advanced voting locations, now it'll be 36. For logistics and tabulation, we will be trying to expedite that process to tabulate a little earlier. We're still working on that. For our communications department, they will be attempting to come up with a marketing plan to inform voters to please, remind voters to please go to your signed election day location election day if they choose not to vote advanced voting. In regards to the election holiday, we will be attempting to work with Fulton County libraries and senior services to see if we can make it a county holiday for any senior or library facility that we use for election day. We will attempt to have a partial closure of the facility and use the staff that works there to work the polls. So that's a recommendation from our strategy team, but we're still working that out to see if it's gonna work out in the upcoming weeks. And for the temporary staffing, which is on the following page, we also discussed the journey that we took to get to the staffing plan. We originally had one staffing agency. We were asked to diversify. Therefore, we bid it out to various companies. We received 5 bids. We sent it out twice, actually, and received another 5 bids. And we were selected the lowest bidders from those selections. What we decided to do was to select 3 of the companies that would be coming in. We decided they'll be stronger together because of the national staffing shortages, that they can use all their resources to be able to recruit, and some of the positions will be going to our human resources department. I know that Amit mentioned in the meeting, the questions were, they were concerned about staffing, that the previous companies had some issues, but again, we made it clear that none of the temp agencies manage or supervise staff. That is upon our department to do so, and any issues that we had in the past, those managers no longer work here, so we're making sure that we don't have those problems again, as well as the audit. That was also upon our department to make sure we did audit correctly, and that person is not working either, so all those things are being fine-tuned. And again, the staffing consists of over 1,200 temporary staff persons, 2,000 election day workers, and we will assist the companies with recruitment by going out to recruitment fairs for the municipalities, reaching out to colleges and universities, and community organizations. Okay. And that concluded the presentation.
Thank you. That's, okay, are there questions about this? Why don't I start, Ms. Crawford?
I don't have any questions at the moment. I do just have a statement. We're going to be working with the Chamber in Johns Creek also on recruitment for poll workers.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce to try to reach out to companies. Some companies, I believe, have incentives that if their workers decide to work election day just to get paid for the day. It depends on the private company. But we're going to be branching out to see if anybody's interested in working with us upon that. It'll be part of our recruitment plan coming up. And once we get all that information, I will present it to the board.
Okay.
And if I can just finish, and to Mark's comment, I know that when I collected some 30 names, several years ago and turned them in. Out of those 30 names, there were maybe 10 that actually said they would work the hours. So you can, everybody's excited and say, yeah, I'll be a poll worker, but when it comes down to it, not everybody agrees. So the numbers are kind of skewed.
Right, and we're gonna make sure we keep a log of that, honestly, to make sure we're gonna make sure everybody's contacted. They have the right to change their mind, but we wanna make sure we log that so that we know that people actually got contacted and had the option.
Okay, Dr. Ruth?
And with early voting, so to Ms. Crawford's point, early voting, a lot of times people will say they want to volunteer, but once they realize the commitment for early voting, we have some people drop out. And I know we're still sticking with that you have to work the entire process of early voting, right? Is that correct?
Yes, because of the fact that it would be strenuous to train people to, if you do like a rotation change, we just don't want to have we want to be able to know who's in the building, who's signing oaths, who's signing documents, and keep track of that. And it's easier if the staff is committed to the 3 weeks.
Yeah, so it might be helpful also to have that on the website when you're talking about recruitment so that people understand the commitment. So with the temporary staffing recommendation, we are working with these 3, and then you have corporate temps. We haven't made decisions about those. Is that correct?
No, we will be working with these 3. It will be Dover, Happy Faces, and corporate temps. Those are the 3.
And corporate
yes.
temps. Okay, great. And then one of the challenges that I've kind of seen is the onboarding process. So a lot of these, like Dover, Happy Faces, they may have a separate onboarding process. Have you given consideration to how to streamline or standardize that process across these agencies?
We're going to be having meetings with all 3 agencies to go over, because we've worked with all 3, so we're going to go over strengths and weaknesses with all of them, things that we're looking for, but we will bring that up to see if it's easier for the onboarding process. We did add the links to our website, so if you pick a particular position, it's going to direct you straight to that, whichever company has that position. I believe we have to update now, since it's been just approved yesterday, but we will put that in our discussion points.
Yeah, because some of the staffing agencies have a more stringent process, and then some, it's pretty easy. So I think having that streamlined, having that streamlined would be very beneficial and could enable those, you won't have those issues where some people get called and some people don't get called.
Right. Yes, we'll add them acts also we'll double check how we can keep track of who actually went on our website and actually submit applications to make sure they get a response. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, you have a question?
So a couple of questions, because it keeps coming up. This model that we're using for the upcoming election is a model that's based on, let me back up. There's a couple of reports that said that the way that Fulton County was handling elections before may not have been the best way to do it. And I know they specifically talked about temporary agencies and temp employees, et cetera. But this wasn't the model that was being used before, or was it?
No, it was a sole source, but what a lot of persons keep referring to is the SEB investigative report.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was stating in that report is that I interpret it as that we need to make sure there's no temps that are supervising or managing. It's not about the agency, it's about how we supervise temporary staff. So in our structure, they do not supervise, they do not manage. We manage them, we train them. So I think that's what he was referring to in that report.
And one of the things that he was able to specifically talk about in a particular agency was because that was the only agency we were using at the time.
Exactly, and I don't even believe he mentioned the agency by name. It literally said we need to not have them supervised. But again, we will always need temps. We need over 3,000 temps total. If we kept those on board as permanent staff, they'd have nothing to do for the rest of the year. So yes, we will always need temporary staff, but again, it's upon our department to make sure they're managed correctly, trained correctly. The temp agency onboards them, but we're the ones that supervise that manage them.
So a couple of things I just want to make sure that we're acknowledging is, number one, that this model where you have the various groups all under the elections office, they're doing different things. So for instance, corporate temps, they're handling very specific items. Happy Faces is handling very specific items, as well as Dover and Fulton County.
That's correct. And what we did was look at the past performances. We attempt to give the temp agencies what they were strongest in with recruitment. So therefore, we looked at all those categories before we made the selection of who got what. And of course, it was also with the lowest bids of particular positions as well. We factored all that in.
And specifically for Happy Faces, it keeps, because that's the only place it comes up, because it just comes up. That is an agency that's used by the state as well.
They're used by the state, and I believe they're used by other counties for elections as well. I'd have to confirm that, but yes, and they're used by other departments in our county as well.
Okay. There's a couple other things I want to say, but I'm going to leave it right there for today. Thank you.
Well, I will say you have, according to this model, you've reduced significantly the number of positions for Happy Faces, and their contract also has been reduced in comparison to Dover and corporate temps. In relation to the Carter-Jones report, if I remember correctly, he said that he recommended not relying so heavily on temporary staff. And I think it was last year, I just called Florida because I felt that they were comparable to Georgia, and asked whether or not they relied on temp agency. And in speaking with the person for recruitment, she said, yes, they have to rely on temporary agency. So I think you have taken the criticism around Happy Faces, and we have diversified our temp sources, and hopefully we've had improvements in this last election, and I think we will continue to see, hopefully, improvements.
Let's see, Mr. Wingate.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Williams, when I was looking at this, the average cost for a temporary person is considerably lower with the organization corporate temps. And it seems, in looking at what the particular roles that you're going to have these play, seems like those are, fairly substantial positions to be taken. So why is there, as I will call it, their unit cost for purposing a temporary person so much lower?
Are you looking at the chart that was in the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the Happy Faces positions, regional coordinators, instructors, class assistants, those stay on longer. That's why it looks like the amount is more. They're here for like maybe 2 or 3 months apiece, compared to some of the positions in corporate temps that has the technicians election day or line monitors. They're here for 1 day. So it looks like it's, so you'd have to, what I will do is send you the exact budget that breaks down how many positions, what's the pay per hour, and you can review that. But it's just that the length of time is different. That's why it seems like it doesn't add up, but it does.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, I guess in looking at this, the logical thing is to take how much you are indicating is going to be the total cost by the number of positions that are going to be filled on that budget. So regardless of how much time may be involved, you can still come out with, an average unit cost, if you will, to put that person and do some function during, whichever election. But it just seemed to me that it was it's a fairly substantial difference in the unit cost for these folks. And I do understand, some of these positions are going to go on longer than others. But again, mathematically, you've still got an average cost for, whatever amount of time, depending upon how many people you're putting on the positions and what that estimated or, budgeted cost is.
Yeah, we'll forward you the budget today and you can review it, so to get the exact breakdown.
And I appreciate that. It'd give me something to sit here and ponder through, not to, challenge your question, but just so, when things like this come up, we've got great answers. Thank you.
Okay. Got it? All right, great, thank you. Again, want to thank you and the whole Fulton County team, because this involves our contracting department, our HR department, managing the payroll of these new folks. It's really been logistically challenging. I also want to thank everybody from working through this. So we instituted the beginning of these changes for the primary and the primary runoff, and this is sort of the next iteration of it, and everybody's working incredibly hard to try to come up with this. One of the things I think Ms. Crawford touched on and we should think about is, when we manage 3,000 volunteers, many of whom come through the staffing agencies, but many of whom come from the community, folks may say they want to be a poll worker, but then they've got to go through training, they've got to get assigned, they've got to show up, they've got to not have a problem with something that happens, in their life, which we all have. And not to mention COVID that takes people out for periods of time. So when you're trying to get 3,000 people to show up for work consistently over weeks, you probably need 2 to 3 times that number of people to start into the process so that you have the right number when you get to the end. And so I think we, have consistently a lot of work to do, but one of the other reasons that staffing agencies are incredibly helpful is when people don't show up on the day of an election when we're expecting them to, and sometimes that happens in fairly large numbers. We've got to be able to call somebody who's got people available to show up, and the staffing agencies give us that kind of last-minute coverage, which we so desperately need. So thank you all for working through a new process, and new processes with involving this many touches of people mean that we've still got processes we've got to iron out, making sure people know how to get payroll and how to get paid and sign their papers and all the things that logistically requires. So keep on it, keep moving, and thank you for getting us ready for November. So let's see, shall we move on? We got call for election for the city of Roswell and Milton. You want to just take us through anything we need to know about that?
Okay, for the city of Roswell, they are asking for bond questions to be placed on the ballot. It is in your packet starting on page 81. It has, with the resolution is listed, as well as any qualifying fees and things of that nature. Well, there are no qualifying fees, but it lists the question itself, starting on page 81. And for the city of Milton, I'm sorry, I take that back. The city of Roswell has bond questions, and it does have a city council seat. That's why there are qualifying fees. So starting on page 81, it describes the question and the candidate information. And for the city of Milton, they are asking for a homestead exemption to be placed on the ballot, and that is also in the packet for your approval. And once the BRE approves, we will also be submitting this to the BOC.
Okay. Do we want to take these separately or together? Do we have a...
Together is fine with me.
Take them together? Okay, go ahead and make the motion.
Separately? Separately is fine with me.
Thank you. All right, let's do them each.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to call for the election for the city of Roswell.
Second that motion.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There are none. That motion passes. Next.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to call for the election for the city of Milton.
I think we have 2 elections in Roswell, right? We have a candidate
do them
election
separately.
and a bond.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'll second the Milton one.
They can,
Okay.
no, those can be, they can be submitted together because they're still on the same election ballot, right? Is that correct, Nadine? There's no separate election. It was just for the municipalities, each of them needed to be separate.
Okay, well, since we've done the candidate election for Roswell, let's do the bond referendum for
Okay.
Roswell.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we call for the election for the bond referendum for the city of Roswell.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? There are none. That motion passes.
And Madam Chair, I make a motion to call for the election for the city of Milton.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. The motion passes. Okay, is that it?
Yep.
I feel like I'm signing more things than that, but I guess that's, I'll go back and review those as we go. What's that? Oh, all right. Let's see, let's go then to voter residency challenges, I think is where we are. And we'll go in this order, Ann Delmas, David Hubert, Jason Frazier. Ms. Delmas, if you want to come down. And I guess, Ms. Marshall, do you want to just present them, and then for the folks bringing the challenges, if we have questions, we will ask for that.
Hey, can I say something before Ms. Marshall gets started?
Sure.
I just want to say that I'm Elizabeth Ann Delmas. I live in the north part of Fulton County. I have worked early voting and election day and worked on the panels, and I've done it a couple of times. So I've worked in South Fulton for early voting last year, and then I worked up here for early voting, and then I worked recently at English Street. It was a very positive process. Met some amazing people. I think the more we all work together, it is so important that we all work together. We're all involved in all aspects of the process, because then we all learn to trust each other. The first lady that spoke, I worked closely with her on the voter panels. There's nothing more important than us all working together. That's, and then the training, the more training we can have with the manuals, and then also the training where you're actually hands-on and you're touching the BMDs and you're turning them off and on, critical, because I worked election day, Sandy Springs. Luckily, I was able to call a buddy of mine who was working in North Fulton. She was able to, with FaceTime, show me where to turn it on at the bottom. So training manuals, hands-on training, it's all critical.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
All right, Ms. Marshall, you want to take us through this challenge?
Ms. Willard, it's me, Jessica.
Oh,
we need to swear in the challengers to state that the information that they presented to the registrars.
Okay, great, thank you. Excuse me?
They're actually providing you with testimony. This is an actual hearing on the challenge, and so we need to make certain each of them are sworn in, as well as the information.
Great, thank you so much. Who would be doing that?
Please raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Do you swear that all of the testimony that you're about to provide here is true and accurate? Is that correct? To the best of your knowledge.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, now, Ms. Marshall, you're on.
Ms. Elizabeth Ann Delmas submitted a challenge to our office on June 29th. There were a total of 192 names that were submitted. During research, it was very easy to verify that all of the names of the voters that Ms. Delmas submitted are registered in other states. She used the Secretary of State's website for Alabama, Arkansas, Colorado, Florida, Illinois, Maryland, and North Carolina to verify the information. Provided the findings brought forth by Ms. Delmas, I recommend that the board removes 154 voters from the voter rolls. So hers was very laid out, very organized, very detailed. We were able to look each voter up and also verify the documentation that she provided was valid, and everyone is registered to vote in another state.
And so I have a question. So what you're recommending is, for those of us who are looking at this on page 130 of our report or page 4 of the challenge, this is down to, interestingly, John McCain, not the late senator. And we've had discussion in past challenges of what information we're using to validate that for example, that this John McCain is not Senator John McCain. What is the validating information that you use to identify the voter?
So the information that we use to identify the voter is if the voter registration number is provided, we can use that. Of course, we use the first, last name, the date of birth, even down to the address that she provided, which was a Fulton County address. So all of the information that was provided by Ms. Delmas, we were able to identify or match it up to voters in our state registrar system.
Okay, so date of birth significantly.
Yes, ma'am, everything.
Gives you that, okay. Any other questions on this particular challenge?
So you do use date of birth on each person?
Yes, so in verification, when we pull a voter up, we look at every detail that we have before us. And we'll talk about how it looks or appears to be different when you only use one aspect, because some challengers are identified only by date of birth, but there's other people with the same name in the same county with the same date of birth, if that makes sense. So we look at everything.
You mean like Aaron Johnson and the same address with the same birthday, like that?
Different date of birth. I mean, different address, but same date of birth. So if Aaron Johnson is being challenged and we're only provided the first and last name and the date of birth, and the date of births are the same, but there's different addresses, if you don't look at that, then how can you make a distinction between the two?
Okay, thank you.
Great. Other questions?
One more thing. So she submitted, I want to stand corrected, she submitted 192. The reason why we are only recommending the removal of 154 is because we found that 38 were registered in other counties. So a packet and handout has been provided to Ms. Delmas as well so that she's able to identify those 38 voters and file them with the appropriate county.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall.
Okay, thanks. I believe Mr. Wingate had a question.
Yeah, I think Ms. Williamson basically answered it. So those 38 are not on the Fulton County roll.
That is correct, Mr. Wingate.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to move on the recommendation of our registration chief.
To remove the
To remove the
154 voters.
154 voters from the roll.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Yeah, we're going to get you to move to uphold the challenge. And then upholding the challenge results in us following the recommendations to remove the voters, and that requires a different process. So
we're going to remove, the motion then
it's to uphold the challenge.
is to uphold the challenge for 154 and then deny the challenge for
138.
138.
Okay.
For 38.
38, that's correct. And it's on page 125. I don't know what number you have, but I have page 125 of our board book. It's where the summary was given.
Yep.
Okay, so I need to reword the.
Yep.
Okay, I make a motion to uphold
The challenge.
the challenge for 154 voters by Miss Elizabeth DeMoss.
That's correct.
And
deny.
And,
the
I'm
challenge.
sorry, and deny the 38, and deny 38 challengers.
Okay.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. That motion carries. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
My apology. There are also, I don't know if they filled out comment cards. There are some people that are here today. So I don't know. How do you want to do it, Jessica?
No, the challenge, challenger.
Yes, people that are being challenged are here to show proof that they do in fact live in Fulton County.
Then if they are here, and they relate to Ms. Dumas's challenge, then yes, they are able to be heard before the actual motion. But I thought these people were all in full,
My apology. I think they're for Jason's and Mr. Hubert's, but let me check because don't know.
Well, actually, what I suggest you do, Madam Chair, is to have the clerk just call to see if there are any parties who are present, who are voters who oppose the challenge. And that way we get on record anybody who is here who challenges the validity of the challenger's position.
Of this particular one or all of
this,
them?
No, we're doing them separately.
Yeah.
This particular one, and I don't think you're going to have anybody
Yeah.
for this one.
Would you just ask? Well, I'll ask. Are there any voters here that oppose the challenge on this particular issue? Okay, seeing none, we're moving on to the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you. The challenge brought forth by David Hill Hubert. And before we make the motion, we will ask for that. We'll go ahead and let Ms. Marshall take us through this one. Oh, wait, got to swear in, sorry.
Do you solemnly swear that you will truthfully, you will provide truthful information with regard to the information that you're here to the best of, you're going to testify to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Ms. Marshall.
On June 29th, Mr. David Hill Hubert submitted or resubmitted a list of 42 names. Today, 33 of those names are being challenged. One, because they are registered in another county. A folder has been provided to Mr. Hubert to identify that voter so that he can provide it to the appropriate county. 8 of those challengers were already in cancel status. And the challenger, Mr. Hubert, was notified. So that leaves 33. Out of the 33 names submitted during research, we were able to verify the information of 6 of these voters and actually match it up with the information provided by Mr. Hubert to the state registrar system. So provided the findings brought forth by Mr. Hubert, I recommend removal of 6 voters from the voter roll.
I think
Yeah,
it's not lining up with what we're looking at here, so are we looking at a different?
Yeah, the
We
date,
got the 33, and we got the 1,
But
and I
the-
think we got the 8.
8, but it's,
Everything else is different.
yeah, the
Okay.
15 names.
Yeah, actually, so what we're looking at is Mr. Hubert's challenge from May 2nd. And I think what you just reported is Mr. Frazier's on June 29th.
Okay, so the date was originally May 2nd.
Right.
So that's why I put May 2nd on there. My apology, I didn't
Yep.
update my copy. But this is a continuation of the previous hearing that Mr. Hubert is following up on.
Okay.
So this is the one from May 2nd that we held, and then we asked Mr. Hubert, thank you so much, to hold off until the next scheduled meeting, or he agreed to, so it's from May 2nd.
Right, but when you said we're talking about
It's
6 voters, then that references back to a different chart that we have?
Oh, yeah, no, so the chart is the same. So if you, vote, number of active voters, you should have 15. But under the registrar recommendations, I broke it down. I would like to remove 6, or recommend that you all remove 6 because they are registered in Florida.
Okay, we're just having a hard time understanding.
In the last column, where it says registrar
On page
recommendations.
132.
I'm on 132. Yeah, 6. Yeah, I got it. I'm just not understanding it. So
Yeah.
we're going to remove
Oh, 6, oh, I
6
see.
voters that are registered in Florida, but the others we are not going to remove.
That is correct.
And the ones that we're removing, when we go back and look at our chart, what are their names?
Priscilla Drew Walter. No, I'm sorry. The ones that we are removing would be, give me one second. Where's my notes?
Well, I just want to find out what we're talking about first, and then I will, thank you.
We can do them by the person, just one moment. It's only a small number. So the 6 that I am recommending removal for, we were able to verify that they are registered to vote in Florida. So it will be Kedana Annette Crawley, Raymond Francis Dowling,
Hold on.
Ewa,
Wait a minute.
sorry,
Raymond Francis Downer. Downing?
Downey.
Okay. Go ahead.
Ewa Marta Hitt. Joseph Sebastian Hitt. Karen Lynn Remetz.
Remits?
And Patrick Michael Remetz. And it was one more.
So there's 7.
So 6.
Kedania Crawley is out of county, so we're not gonna, that's just 5 to remove, because we're not removing her.
So
Right.
is that the one that's Forsyth County, or is that, because it says out of county Forsyth, but it says Florida as well?
It's, so the 6 names are, because I don't, it's Cartinga Alfredo was one of those names.
Okay.
So
Okay.
is Cartinga, Dowling, both of the hits, and both of the remits. Kedana Crowley, even though he provided adequate documentation, I went back and looked in the system, and she is currently registered in Forsyth. So please disregard the removal of her because she's not registered in Fulton County.
Okay, and then the rest of these that you did not mention will reject the challenge for a variety of reasons, is that?
Yes, so I didn't provide the names, but I could start putting the statuses or the recommendation next to each one. That's just not what we usually submit, but I can do that moving forward so that it's simplified. But under the registrar recommendations, I tried to break down like 11 of them we didn't remove or recommend removal because of lack of evidence. And then four of them, 5 of them did not, he didn't submit any evidence at all. One of the voters responded, and Mr. Hubert is aware of that. So I can start to put like each recommendation next to the Excel names as well.
Yeah, I looked to my colleagues on this. It's just, for some reason, this one's a little more confusing.
might be
Partly because we're sort of having to pick and choose through these names. And so anybody that's got a good suggestion, we don't have to discuss it now and kind of work through that. But I don't want to create more work for you, but it just might be easier. So we now know the recommendation is to remove 6.
So Alfredo Cartagena is on there.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And so before we make a motion to do that, is there anyone here whose name is mentioned to be removed that would like to contest that or bring forward information? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a motion then.
Well, I had a question about your recommendation of not to remove for lack of evidence, and if you could talk about that, Ms. Marshall, for those.
Yes, ma'am. So Mr. Hubert submitted several tax bills, and after consulting with legal, the tax bill was only acceptable if there was a homestead exemption filed in addition to the tax bill. So in reviewing some of them and having my colleagues to review behind me, not all of them were sufficient.
But the ones that had a tax exemption, a homestead exemption, I'm sorry, that is sufficient evidence and that they were removed. Is that correct for some of them? As far as your evidence of them being moved out of state or?
Yes, the ones that we were able to verify, because it's all circumstantial, like, it's just assumptions of the challenger. But for the ones that we were able to verify or we heard back from the voter or we were able to look up in the Secretary of State's website for Florida, then they will be removed. But outside of that, it was just like inadequate evidence.
Okay. Questions?
Madam Chair, the challenger does get a chance to speak
Okay.
with regard to the recommendation from the staff.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your guidance. Mr. Hubert?
I don't really have much to say. I did think I submitted sufficient evidence, tax bills with indication that there was a homestead exemption taken. Also, tax bills, there was homestead exemption, and then there was, it's slipping my mind right now, but I believe I gave substantial information on each one. Now, whether she can figure that out from her system, I don't know. I'll accept this at the moment, and we'll see what needs to be done in the future as it relates to these. So.
Great. Okay, thank you. Motion? Anybody? Okay.
Mr. Hubert, what is the name of the group that you're working with to do this?
I'm working independently.
Oh, that's not what you said at the last meeting.
I've always said I was working independently.
But you get a list.
Well,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, you did. You said
so I
you get a list from
the
somebody
Secretary of
else.
State, and then we cut the list down for the ones that I'm working on. That's all.
And what is the name of that group?
Well, there isn't a group. I'll just get a list from the Secretary of State.
No.
There's no group. There's just friends that are better at cutting down. You know, there are a lot of voters in the county, so I have to limit it down to a certain number that I can handle. So I asked somebody that's good at spreadsheets to cut the list for me, that's all. There's no group.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
So just to be clear, you didn't tell us that a group gets the names from the Secretary of State's office and then gets them to you. You didn't say that last time.
If I did, I didn't mean to say that.
Oh, and you're working totally independent. So you get the list. So that means that you cross-referenced your list this time with the Secretary of State's. Because you remember we had the conversation about you not realizing that there was a column in the list that you received from the Secretary of State that tells you who's about to go into, was it inactive status? Yeah. There's a column that actually tells you that, and hold on, a lot of the names that you sent were in that inactive, or going to inactive status, and you indicated that you never saw that column.
That's correct. It's the challenge status column that we don't see. The list that I've gotten does not show that challenge status column.
But if you got it directly from the Secretary of State, that column is there.
I'm just telling you, I didn't see it. That's all.
But even though from the last meeting, I understand you didn't see it before the last meeting, but when we had the discussion and you were notified that that column is there, did you then go back and cross-reference and see or double-check your list that you received to see if it was there?
I simply accepted Ms. Marshall's
No,
statement.
not hers. Or you accepted her statement?
Her statement that they were on challenge status. I didn't go back to see if that was correct or not.
Okay.
Other questions?
Mr. Hubert, for the ones that that you are that you submitted, that you're in agreement with, I guess what I'm trying to say is, for those that you're not, that Ms. Marshall has said 6 do not remove lack of evidence. I see you have withdrawn one, and then there's a recommendation to not remove no evidence submitted. You said that you submitted homestead exemptions.
I did.
So are there any that we are not removing that you submitted a homestead exemption for?
I do believe that is the case, but I'll just work with Ms. Marshall and see what happened, because I would not have submitted the challenge if I didn't have evidence of a homestead exemption. So I believe I submitted it. I'll just have to double check. It was done electronically to make sure that everything came through. Ms. Marshall obviously did not see the evidence. So I'm not challenging that she did or didn't see it. I'll just have to check and see if it's on the electronic copy. When I looked at them, it was all there. So it's just an issue that we'll have to work through.
Okay.
So that's the status of that.
All right. Can I have a motion then that would involve removing the 6 voters that she recommended and rejecting the challenge to the remaining voters, 27?
Upholding the challenge with regard to the 6 and denying the challenge with regard to the others.
Okay.
I have another, so the 8, this is from Ms. Marshall. Can we go to this 8? Because we're doing this as a whole, correct? Correct. Your recommendation, these voters were removed from the challenge, but their names are listed for record purposes.
Mr. Hubert submitted the names, and I didn't want to just take anything off because I'm trying to be very detailed so that everyone is on the same page. So after he was notified that they were in cancel status, he just said remove them from the challenge.
I see, these were,
The documents were already prepared.
okay, these were already on the Secretary of State's list for removal, right? Or, is that right or no?
So they were already in cancel status.
Oh, they were already in cancel status.
And their
Okay.
goal is to get people placed in cancel status, and cancel simply means you're not registered. So there's like no, I was trying to explain to them, there is no total removal. They're just placed in cancel status, but the name does not disappear out of the system.
There's one other thing I'd like to say, if I could. I believe that the ones that Ms. Marshall has approved are those that have registered in another state. All of the other challenges had to do with those who were not registered in another state and required other evidence, such as a homestead exemption, or something like that. So there's a disconnect with the evidence I'm submitting and the evidence that she's being able to verify. These are the most difficult ones to do. The easy ones are those that have registered in another state or have voted in another state. More difficult are those that don't fall in those 2 categories. All the rest of these fall in the other category, where they're not either voted or registered in another state. So you have to go to ancillary information. You got to get the tax exemption, homestead exemption evidence and provide it to her. Typically, we would see it on the tax bill, and that would be enough. It says they took a homestead exemption. Ms. Marshall's saying that's not enough. She needs something else. So if that's the case, we'll try to get something else.
Well, I don't think that's what she said. She said that in talking with legal, that a homestead exemption would be sufficient evidence for removal. I think what's happening here, though, is if you don't have the list so that you could provide the evidence for the homestead exemption for each person, that could be presented as evidence here in this hearing to show that you have evidence for whatever, to correspond with whatever voter, and then there could be a discussion about having that person removed. I hope I'm clear.
And I believe I did that, but Ms. Marshall doesn't seem to have it. She's not rejected any information I gave her. She just said she doesn't have it. And it appears to me to be some sort of data entry problem, and we'll look and see what that is and what that's about, because in each of these cases, I provided what I thought was pretty conclusive evidence.
But I
All right,
thought the
okay,
what we
let's-
talked about last
Let me
time.
let Ms. Marshall answer.
Oh, I just wanted to, I would like to let Mr. Huber know that his documentation was received. It was just not sufficient. So, like for Mr. Hamill, it's on the second page of the report. This is a tax bill for Fulton County. Again, I ran all of this by legal because I don't work in the tax commissioner's office. But on some of them, if this tax bill is received, and I also provided you a color copy as well, Mr. Hubert, there's like a exemption, a tax exemption number on here, and then he would provide like, we were trying to get everything up on the screen for you guys today so you're able to see the examples, but is this enough information? Like just a Fulton County tax bill with no homestead exemption number on it? I don't understand that.
Well, let me respond to that. So the Fulton County bill is not pertinent here. It's the Florida bill that shows a tax exemption has been taken in Florida. So the rule is if the voter has taken a tax exemption in another state, that's evidence that that's their residence. So I provided the Florida home tax bill that shows that they took a tax exemption.
Okay. We are not going to work out the process. You know, we've had a lot of conversations since this citizen challenge effort was enabled by the General Assembly, and I would still encourage people to consider, because the summertime is the time when one would bring legislation to their elected representatives, to come forward with some detail and so that we could get some consistency. Because as I talk to election board members around the state, everyone is struggling to figure out how to do this in a consistent manner. We have already discussed the massive effort that our staff has undergone this year in terms of redistricting and managing some other processes. And so having to get into a separate process and level of detail every time somebody brings a challenge is that much more work for the team. And frankly, we have a lot of things to do. So Ms. Marshall, thank you so much for working through this. What we have, as far as I can see, is a list of 22 voters total, 15 of whom, well, 6 of whom you are recommending that we remove, 15 of whom that we would reject because you're not recommending that, and 1 of whom that we would reject because they don't live in this county anymore. So, Ms. Perkins-Hooker, I just want to make sure that I am phrasing that correctly for our team so that we can move on with this.
Yes, what you're doing is upholding his challenge today on 6 voters who've moved to Florida and denying his challenge with regard to the others. And there are reasons why, but that's not germane to the hearing. You're just denying the others.
Okay. Okay. Can I have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to uphold 6 challenges to be removed from the voter rolls, and everyone else stay the state as they...
Deny the others. Properly moved.
Sorry.
Is there a
Excuse me.
second? I can't do it.
So you don't want to, so do we need
I'm looking for a
discussion?
second.
Well, do we need discussion?
Do we need discussion?
Okay.
Mr. Wingate is also available for a vote if he has.
I just need a second.
Mark?
Mr. Wingate, you're on mute.
Are you not seconding?
I second the motion.
Okay. Do you have, we'll talk. Properly moved and seconded. The motion is to remove 6 voters from the rolls as recommended and deny the challenge for the remainder.
And this does not, I just want to make a comment, this does not mean that Mr. Hubert can't come back with the proper corresponding evidence for the homestead exemptions at a later time.
Well, I actually think that it does.
Yeah, because the homestead exemptions
The,
do
the
not-
deny is a denial of a challenge. My understanding is that,
I don't.
my understanding is that on these, there would be an appeal through the courts.
No, they don't have any limitations on the number of times you can challenge, unfortunately, in this statute.
So when we've denied previous ones with the indication that they have to go through the courts to reactivate, is that?
That's correct, but that doesn't apply here. But we did want it to give an opportunity for anyone in the audience.
Yeah, I asked, I didn't see anyone that
Okay.
had,
I
that
didn't
applied.
Okay.
Okay, properly moved and seconded. All,
And that, so,
that actually, we're kind of done with discussion after the second. We can withdraw it all, but I'm not trying to cut off conversation,
okay.
but we just have
But,
to.
well, she agreed that he could come back.
Yes,
I
he
just wanted
can.
to make that
All right.
clear.
All right. Taking a good bit of time on these 6. Can we, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
There's one voting no. The motion carries. Thank you. All right, move to the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next one is a challenge brought, well, the next one is a challenge brought forth by Jason Frazier on June 29th. Mr. Frazier, please come down and get sworn in.
I'm sorry, did Mark vote aye on the last one?
Mr. Wingate, did you vote aye on the last challenge?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to let the attorney swear you in.
Now at least we got it. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence that you're going to give in regard to your challenge shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, great, thank you. All right, Ms. Marshall, you want to take us through this?
Okay, we'll walk through each one. Mr. Frazier submitted a total of 9 challenges, 9 separate challenges, as far as category-wise. The first one we will do is, I don't know you all's page numbers, but it's 54 is the top number.
Okay.
Page 135.
Yeah, and we'll act on each one of these separately,
Yes.
I think.
That's, yes.
That one's Lee Street.
It's on page 135.
It's the Lee Street challenge?
I'm sorry, I don't know who's talking.
Page 135, that's what it is.
Okay.
I do not have these pages in my packet.
All right, you don't have it at all?
I do not have it at all.
I sent you an updated email.
Did you hear that? Can you check your email inbox for an updated list?
Well, I am sitting here looking at it, and the last that I got from Miss Robinson was on July the 13th. And that was at 5:27 p.m. That's the last that I've seen. It's the last that I have, anyway.
I'll forward you.
All right, well, go ahead. No, this, please proceed.
She's going to resend it, so just watch your inbox. Okay.
I don't believe I have it either.
I've got
5 different groups, but there's 9 different groups, and I don't see one for Lee Street unless somebody wants to.
Well, let's
Look at
just,
the top number being
hold on,
54.
hold on. I'm going to run this. Right now, we are going to talk about the challenge that is a number of names submitted as 54, brought forward on June 29th. All the rest of them we'll work through as we get them. So, Ms. Marshall, if you will take us through this particular one, we will continue.
Okay. So on June 29th, Mr. Jason Frazier submitted a list of 54 names in regards to them being registered at a Lee Street Southwest addresses. He stated that these are imaginary addresses, and he verified the documents through Google Maps. What I did was I took the initiative to send this street to our GIS department, these addresses, And after GIS reviewed them, they did come back and verify that these addresses are invalid. So provided the findings brought forth by Mr. Frazier, I recommend removal of 52 because 2 of them were not assigned to Georgia voters. So the registration numbers and names that he submitted, we were not able to pull 2 of them up. So I'm recommending removal for only 52 instead of 54.
Okay. Mr. Frazier, do you have anything you want to say about this?
I guess I would have, I'll circle back now that I know that I can resubmit. I mean, all of these came from the voter rolls, so I'm not sure, being that I was just handed this 2 minutes ago, why a couple of these wouldn't have had a voter registration because I submitted them with a Georgia voter registration, but maybe from the time I received it and now they've been canceled or something else had happened, but I will need to look into that, or unless Shamira has more details.
I have listed the 2 registration numbers that you provided. Look on your findings report that was attached to the front of that. There's a detailed report breaking down everything so that we are all able to read it. Those 2 registration numbers that you provided, in addition to the names of the 2 voters, I was not able to pull them up in the Georgia registrar system. So if you would like to do further research, I have provided that so you're able to see it.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone impacted by this particular challenge? There's going to be more from Mr. Frazier that is on this address list. Okay. On this particular list that we're discussing? No.
She might not know since it's 9.
Excuse me?
She may not know which one is hers. She
Yes,
just know
right.
it's
So
him.
your name was Ms. Taylor, I believe. Let me see, I don't see.
She's not on this one.
She's not on
Ms.
this
Porter.
one?
this one.
Okay,
No, ma'am.
so there's no one here to speak to this. We're ready to go for a motion to remove 52 voters as recommended by Ms. Marshall. The other 2 do not have valid registration numbers. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I recommend that we upheld the recommendation to remove 52 voters and deny the 2 because they are not assigned to Georgia. They're not assigned in the Georgia registration list.
Okay,
That's correct.
properly moved and
That's-
seconded? Oh, excuse me, is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
1 opposed. All the others affirm. We'll move on to the next one.
Okay, the second category that he submitted, but you do not have before you, I will tell you why, is 9 issues pertaining to missing names. After consulting with the legal, I was advised that these are, Mr. Frazier, valid challenges. So what we will have to do is we have already done the research and prepared everything for this particular challenge, but there will be a scheduled special call meeting in order to hold that hearing. The reason why is because I was under the impression that missing names, being that it is a process that we do during the voter registration process, like the data entry, that it was not a valid challenge. But after speaking with legal, they did agree with you and say that they are valid challenges. So we will hear those 9 issues, just not today, because I had to get the letters and stuff out by law.
And Madam Chairman, I need to let you know, the reason that was the opinion of legal is the fact that there is a problem that is created by the Secretary of State's office having one opinion on it being a not valid challenge basis. Our office being of the opinion that it is a valid basis because you're supposed to have, when you register to vote, a name, an address, and that address is used for determining places like where your polling precinct is, et cetera. So the Secretary of State's office gave our staff advice that it wasn't a valid challenge. We then said that we think that it is a valid challenge, and there is an added wrinkle, is how do you send a notice to someone who does not have an address or a name? We got both of these going on with some of his challenges. So I agree with a statement that was provided earlier by Mr.
Frazier.
Mr. Frazier, that we need to have a meeting of the mind with the Secretary of State's office, our board, on what is a challenge and what is the basis of a challenge, because it's nebulous in the code and it leaves it up to various interpretations. But we are allowed to establish our own procedures and our own policies. And I just thought, out of the abundance of caution, that a voter who has no address or no name is a basis for challenge.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And again, this goes back to my point that the legislation enabling this has not been clearly defined, nor have regulations been promulgated. Every county that I've spoken to that are having challenges are enduring this, and it is a tremendous amount of work on staff and boards to have special called meetings and other things. So I do hope that we can start to work with the General Assembly now on, you know, what we can do to streamline this process. And I have asked folks at the Secretary of State's office to undertake that, but haven't seen any action on that yet. So we're not going to do with the 9, but we will have to call a special called meeting and have all of us come back here to do those 9 names that don't have names or addresses in a special called meeting that will be frustrating, frankly. Let's move on to the 1,045 folks.
If you don't mind, I just want to go through each one because he submitted 9 so that I can just address. So
Wait. If we're going to come back for a special call meeting.
It's going to be more. But I don't want Mr. Frazier to think that he submitted 9, but there's a category 3. That'll be the same situation as so the missing address, the 2012 that you submitted, Mr. Frazier, that'll be heard at the next meeting as well. Because it's the same situation. It was circumstantial, I didn't know. Number 4, the improper date of birth, where there were 484 issues. That will be heard at the next meeting as well, research done. Now, we are currently on the business addresses where there are 1,045.
Okay, thank you.
So we need a motion to defer the parts of his challenge that relate to missing names, missing addresses, and incorrect birth dates to a special call meeting.
All right, so a motion?
I make her motion.
I don't think you can say what she said.
Yes,
Can we go ahead and include the duplicate registrations, which
Yes.
are also 625, just so you won't have to go back in?
Right, that's fine. I was just trying to make certain that everything that was coming before the board at a subsequent meeting that wasn't going to be adjudicated today was clear in the record. So if it's missing names, missing addresses, incorrect date of births, and
Duplicate
registrations, those categories would just be deferred to the next call meeting on this.
Can I ask a question, very briefly? The duplicate registrations, in the past, that was viewed as a clerical error. Is that now going to be viewed as a challenge in the future? And if so, then what happens with the other 12,000 and change that I submitted before? Will they be grouped together in that? Or if the work hasn't been done, I'm fine with moving forward, but I don't know where that stands.
I'm sorry, the other 12,000?
I've submitted around 13,000 duplicate registrations so far.
Well, the ones that have already been before this board and adjudicated are gone. I mean, they're not a part of any challenge now.
Okay, I haven't been given an update, so I didn't know those were all completed. If that's the case.
That might be before me. Has it been ruled upon before, Ms. Mitchell?
So in the past, the duplicate registration were not considered a challenge. We just thank Mr. Frazier for his research and for notifying our office, and we worked diligently on those. I'm going to take a look at the date of the email. I emailed Mr. Frazier and he responded, letting him know how many of the duplicates that had been merged to date at that time. So since then, they are complete.
And I would assume I'll get an update on that?
I'll send you another email, Mr. Frazier. Yes, sir.
Fantastic, thank you.
You're welcome.
But you send him an update on that? Okay. All right, so we need a motion to defer the voters that are missing names, missing addresses, have incorrect date of birth, and
Maybe duplicates.
and duplicates to a future special called meeting.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we take the names that Mr. Frazier has submitted that have missing voters, missing names, addresses, and duplicates.
And incorrect dates of birth.
And incorrect dates of birth, and defer them to a special called, to be heard at a special called meeting.
Second? Is there a second? Somebody's going to need
I'll
to
second
it. Okay, properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Is that everyone? Said it? Okay, thank you. The motion carries. None opposed. Okay. Next.
No, I didn't vote. I did say aye.
What's next?
All right, so we are currently on the business addresses. It is the one where 1,045 names were issued.
Okay?
And I do see a correction. If 2 of them were out of county, I need to exclude those from my count. So it will actually be, we verified that all of the addresses that Mr. Frazier submitted are in fact business addresses. We use Google Maps, Bing, and our GIS map to verify that those were business addresses. So based upon the findings brought forth by Mr. Frazier, I recommend removal, no, not removal. So what I wanted to ask the board today is that we allow these voters until August 8th, instead of removing them, allow them to August 8th, time to respond and update their address. So if you are all in agreement today, what our office would do is mail them a letter letting them know, hey, they've already received the hearing letter, but also say, we have received notice and verified that you are in fact registered at a business address. Would you please update your registration with a residential address? We'll enclose a voter registration application and give them to August 8th to respond. That's my recommendation.
Mr. Johnson?
I have a question first. I like the recommendation, but so when a person registers, and this is listed as, is he pulling mailing addresses or registration addresses?
They're residential.
Registration address.
Registration, yes.
Their registration. So, because I know, for instance, my mother, like the young lady spoke earlier, my mother uses her post office box. So when she gets her absentee ballot, it comes to her post office box. But she's registered at her residence. So for these, you're saying for each one of these people, none of them have residential addresses?
Yes, sir, that's what I'm saying. For each person that we looked up, they're registered at a UPS store, a PO box, yes.
So could we,
A couple people, yes, ma'am, sorry.
so could we be clear, because I would assume, and I understand a lot of people's thinking, they may not realize that they have to do that. Meaning put their residential address, even though it says it, a lot of people, because I used to have a mailbox, et cetera box, and I used it for everything. I didn't use it for registration, just for the record, so y'all can't catch me on that. But I used it for everything, but I know that there are some people that may not realize that that is not the address that they can use, even though it states it. But in the letter, could you put some type of language
Yes,
that
sir.
gives people the, let
Yes,
them know?
sir. So the letter is very detailed, and I'm going to send it to Nadine and Patrick to, review it and approve it. But I'm in agreement with you. A lot of people, and up until a couple of years ago, a lot of people were registered at business addresses until it was, caught by the state. But that's why I think we should give people enough time to update their addresses, give them time to respond, and just kind of go through the normal list maintenance process before we just cancel people because they're registered at a business.
Again, this is one of those areas that this board needs to look at because there are a lot of homeless people and they are entitled to a right to vote. However, the language in the statute requires a residential address, and maybe working with some other nonprofits or their brothers or sisters, whoever, to help them get access to a right to vote. But unfortunately, the statute is written such that the registration of the P.O. box is going to be deemed a commercial address, and we need to let the public know. So you have a couple of options. You can defer this totally beyond the 8th to give people enough time to get the notice, to react to the notice, and to try to figure out maybe some other ways, and that may be added to your list of things to deal with the legislature, what you do with homeless people who use a P.O. box to get their mail.
May I ask the question? Because I like that statement. Is it possible to give them until the VR deadline for the November election to respond, even past August 8th, just so people can, get their mail, get their affairs in order, and fill out a new application?
I think we bump up against the federal election voter removal date, which is sometime in August. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We're trying to check out the date, but we could go all the way to that date.
Yeah, I think that date is in the vicinity of August 20th or something. Please count it, though, because I'm trying to remember. Yeah.
While they're looking at that, can I make a quick suggestion? Possibly even when she sends out that letter, if people are homeless, I know there are a lot of people registered at homeless shelters. May I recommend that you put some verbiage in there that if you're homeless, maybe give them a list of where they can register? Because I don't want homeless people not to be able to vote. I just want to make sure people are in the right precinct, especially in local elections. You might be voting for the wrong mayor, city council, because your P.O. box is here and you live over there. So there's a lot of reasons, not to mention it makes it difficult to find people to move out of state if they live in a P.O. box because they're not selling their P.O. box to move to Florida.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
But you'd also have to let them know, don't put them in Atlanta Mission, and their name and Atlanta Mission and an address, because that's still a commercial business. It's just a nonprofit business. So they have to have their name at that address and not list the Atlanta Union Mission or the whatever.
Yeah, whatever the proper method is, but yes, I don't want to disenfranchise.
It's a conundrum that was not considered by the legislature, and it needs to be addressed.
Yep. Okay. So we are discussing this 1,043 names that we are going to recommend perhaps.
And it's August the 10th is the federal date.
August the 10th is the federal date. Is the 8th our meeting?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just did 30 days, but I was reminded of the federal, so that gives them 2 additional days.
All right.
Or a day.
What is the date of our August meeting? So we don't have to have a special called meeting for the purposes of addressing this if possible.
The August BRE meeting is August 11th.
Of course it is. Of course it is. All right. Move our meeting? All right.
We couldn't do it on the 10th, though. Well, 10th? No, that's not board day.
So here's the thing, when we try to move a meeting, then we find we don't have a location for a meeting where we can properly televise and be open to the public. So it is not as easy as just moving the meeting. We frequently run into challenges about where we can actually put ourselves. When we have our Election Central building, that will be solved because we'll have our own meeting room. Let me ask Ms. Taylor, who came to the meeting, if there is something she would like to say relative to this, because she is on this list that we are discussing. And if there is anyone else, please raise your hand. Okay, let's let Ms. Taylor go first, and then I'll ask you to come up.
Thank you for this. I have a list of questions that I need to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I have a list of questions that I need answers to in reference to why I was called to this meeting. And the first question is, what is the objective of Mr. Jason Frazier for notifying me by mail?
We're not gonna, I think, first of all, we're gonna want you to talk directly into the mic so that everybody can hear you. I'm gonna talk to our attorney to make sure that we are doing this process correctly, but my assumption is that Ms. Taylor will be addressing us, not Mr. Frazier. Is that correct?
That's correct. You're the hearing officers.
Okay, so you're allowed to address us.
Okay.
But you're not going to go in a back and forth with Mr. Frazier.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
fine. Mr. Frazier's name was on the letter that I received, so that's why I motioned to address him. But since I'm addressing,
He didn't, we mailed the letter.
So yes, I mailed the letter, it's signed with my signature, but per the code book, we do have to notify the challengees who they're being challenged by. So his name is listed as the challenger.
Okay.
and he as the challenger, why did he notify me to be challenged?
He didn't notify you to be challenged. He notified us of a challenge, and we notified you. And my assumption is, well, I'll let Ms. Marshall answer the questions. I'm not going to answer them.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
What's the purpose of the challenge?
The purpose of the challenge is you, your registration was challenged due to you being registered at a P.O. box or a business address and not a actual residence.
Okay, and Mr. Jason Frazier is an employee of the county of Fulton?
Nope, I'm sorry.
Let me interject. Yeah, SB 202 allows challenges. We don't know the reason why the challengers want to challenge people. And I guess we won't get into the weeds of that, but it just allows them to do unlimited challenges. It's not, yeah, so we would just be able to try to make sure you have your right to vote. But unfortunately, we don't know the reason why.
And just for clarification, just in case, because she said SB 202, the state legislature created legislation last year to give citizens the ability to challenge other citizens' registrations. So that's how this happened, and that's where it came from.
Okay, and how do certain citizens that use this challenge select other citizens for this particular voting rights challenge?
Again, as Ms. Williams stated, we don't.
From our understanding, some of them receive a list from the SOS and take it upon themselves to go through that list to pick names or do research on those particular voters. That's all we know at this point.
And what is the SOS?
I'm sorry, the Secretary of State.
Okay, and you do or you do not know how they come to the conclusion of who's on this list?
No, I do not. I think it's just strictly what list are they pulling? I'm not sure.
It was my assumption that they're using the alpha voter list, but again, I cannot verify where they get the list, who receives it, or what information is on it.
Okay, And these challengers, such as Jason Frazier, is he being paid to perform this particular?
Not that we know of. He is not employed by Fulton County and does not represent Fulton County.
Okay. So are you able, Chairwoman Willard, to ask him if he's being paid by whomever to provide this list?
That would be.
Ma'am, I don't think that's relevant to this particular discussion, but after the meeting, if you'd like to ask him, he'll be here. I'm assuming he'll speak to you about that.
Okay, because I think it's relevant because I'm being called out of my normal life and trying to get back to a normal life. And so any question that I ask is relevant.
Yes.
So my next question is, what is his political affiliation?
I don't know the answer to that question. That would be something that you could ask him perhaps after the meeting.
Are you able to ask him now?
No, we're not going to go back and forth on that. What's relevant is the issue of the challenge. And if you have a residential address or want to change your address so that you're removed from this list, maybe that's something that well, I don't guess we can do that today, but.
So if I had a residential address, I would be using it. As I stated earlier, I'm homeless.
Ms. Taylor, thank you so much for showing up today. I would like to say I do have a recommendation for you. I just remembered, but I'll have to pull my book out to read the actual code section. But it states that people that are homeless are allowed to register at the courthouse. So what I can do today, after today's meeting, I can provide you with the Fulton County Courthouse address. And you can submit your registration there. An application, I'll provide you with one. You can use that address as your residential and then use your P.O. box as your mailing address. But that is per law. You are allowed, if you are deemed homeless, to register at the Fulton County Courthouse address.
Excellent. Thank you for that suggestion. And when you do the letter to the people on this, let's pose that as an option.
The only thing about the business addresses, I don't know who's homeless or anything, so you want me to maybe add a line and say, if you are homeless, you can register at this address and provide it?
I'll let y'all decide the best language for that, but I think that's a great alternative. So I think we can fix this for you today,
Yeah, we will
after the
fix that
meeting,
today.
if you'll talk with Ms. Marshall.
We'll do that before you leave the building today. We'll make sure you have your right to vote.
I appreciate that. And will my right to vote be challenged in the future?
No, ma'am, you'll be fine. You'll be fine with that address. You don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming down.
Madam Chair. See, this is the hard part about this whole process to me, that we have so many people that just throw names on a piece of paper and not think about what the actual people, where they are, who they are, what they're going through. And I understand you want a clean voter list. I understand that there's a process, but there's also a process for a clean voter list that doesn't require us to have people like this young lady coming down here to say, I am who I am. There's a process for not having people to always have to fight to do the things that they feel like is a right for them to do, and to have people to sit so callously and when she's asking questions, say little snide remarks during the time period that she's talking. So I would hope that some folks would think about, and I'm not talking about you, Mr. Frazier. I would hope that some people would think about exactly what they're doing. And as they come with challenges, number one, find out the process that the Secretary of State and Fulton County has for removing people. And the fact that we are getting lists that we got from the Secretary of State's office, but we didn't get it from the Secretary of State's office. We got it from a group, but we didn't get it from a group. I reviewed it, but I didn't review it. Those are the types of things that make this process not only hard. We have people that come here every meeting complaining about what Fulton County elections staff is not doing. A part of the problem that they have is they have to spend so much time doing this. We've spent the last probably today, 40% of our time on this. And it shouldn't be that way, but.
Okay, we have another lady that's here. So,
Can I respond to his comment?
no, not right now.
All
We're
right,
going to move
fair
on to
enough.
this other lady.
I mean, I don't mean it
Nope,
like that.
nope, let's just rein it in. Please, ma'am, please come. Thank you for being here. And if you wouldn't mind giving us your name, please.
Hi, my name is Linda G. Harris. I was born and raised here in Georgia, grew up in Atlanta, moved, and have always been a registered voter at my residence, tag title, everything. When I got this letter, I was first upset that, one, the letter is dated July 8th, postmarked July 11th, and I got it yesterday. I have, like the young lady has stated, and you've stated about your mother, I sold my residence in 2017 and went into rental properties. And for the safety of my mail, with mail theft, being a victim of identity fraud, it was best to have my mail going to one location. I understand that the post office is a quote-unquote business address, but that's a safe haven for those of us that want to, one, protect our mail, our identity, and I'm confused as to how citizens get our personal information from the Secretary of State, but that's another issue. I've always, when I've moved, I've changed my voter registration status, but again, as I think young lady stated, that there's a difference between the mailing address and the physical address. My understanding, when you change your driver's license, they put that address on there. That's what happens. But my mailing address has always been that P.O. box, that P.O. box street address, the post office street address. So again, I'm kind of confused. I understand, I heard Mr. Frazier state what the bylaws or whatever is called, the law on the book says about having a business quote-unquote address. I understand, but his list or the information that he gave the young lady to send these letters out, my understanding was June 29th. Is that correct? I don't know what list he got or how old his list is, but as of March 2022, I've lived in Clayton County. I'm a registered voter and have voted in Clayton County. So I don't know and understand why I'm here for a Fulton County issue when clearly I don't live in Fulton County anymore and haven't since March. I've been fighting for the last 2.5 years to get my address as I've moved. The DDS always has the second line, and you can probably see it, and I have a copy here. The second line of my voter registration is the P.O. box number. I can't get them to take it off. I've gone on the website, I've talked to DDS, I've called the voter registration office. I can't get that removed, and it's still on here even though I'm in Clayton County. So I'm very upset because voting is true, near, and dear to me. My family's been part of the struggle. We've been voting, the whole movement. So I'm just really upset right now with the fact that my voting right could be stripped because I received a letter yesterday and was told that I had to be here today or else my privilege to vote would be removed. And to hear how easy it is for people to be removed, I get people from out of state, the fraud, past elections, all of that, I understand that. And I appreciate those that are trying to make sure that the rolls or whatever are clean. I truly appreciate that. But people like me, this young lady, my heart goes out to her and other people in that situation. I'm not homeless, but I've used my P.O. box as my mailing address. And how it gets relayed in the system as a residence or not a residence, I don't know. That's not my fault. I just know that I'm legal when I put my information and changed my information as I moved. And now I am a Clayton County resident here fighting for a right to vote in Fulton County.
I really appreciate you coming down. I'm going to recap and see if there's some things that we can do to be helpful to you. And let me just say a couple of things that hopefully will be informative. You have heard us express our own frustration with this process.
Yes.
It is very, very time-consuming for our staff. It is very time-consuming for our board, and it is very alarming to people who get those letters. When we get a list from a voter, from an individual who is challenging the registration of voters, we have 10 days to act on it. So unfortunately, when the clock starts when we receive it, and hence people get these very late letters. That timing is dictated by the legislation. It is not fair or useful to anyone that it be that kind of time frame, because everybody knows 10 days is the outer limit of getting things through the post office, much less us having the opportunity to deal with it. So I apologize for that, but we're stuck with that for the moment. It sounds like one of the actions we have to take is that, and advise me, we can rightfully remove, so this hearing is to determine if we remove you from the Fulton County election rolls. And it sounds like you have actually moved to Clayton County. So if we remove you from Fulton County, it's not going to impact your Clayton County voter registration.
Are we sure?
Well, let me get to my point.
Okay.
My next point is to ask the staff to look you up to make sure that you are indeed registered in Clayton County. And
That's what I was going to ask, Ms. Woolard. Thank you. I'm prepared to do so now. If you don't mind, could you provide me your last name again?
Harris, Harris.
And what's your date of birth, Ms. Harris?
Excuse me.
Your first name, sorry.
so hold on one second. And it sounds like you've tried to change your address through the DDS system, and it has not been complete on this issue of the post office box.
There is the box number, the second line of the address is the box number, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
That is still sitting there. It won't, can't get it erased, removed, purged, whatever the word is, it's still there. And I printed out my Clayton County voter registration information, and it's there.
Yeah.
So
let me just ask the staff when they have a minute to talk with you over here, if there's anything they can do to help you with that by calling someone that they work with, I would ask the staff to do that. They may not be able to help with that particular aspect because that sounds like a state issue, but sometimes we have contacts. If we can help you, I would ask the staff to do that.
Yes, we can, if you can stay, we'll assist you with that after the meeting. That's me.
Oh, okay, I'm like,
if you can stay, and I'm sorry you had to come down here today.
Yes.
If you can stay, we will assist you with that before we leave today.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
I'm just concerned, even more so, again, how citizens, whether it's a part of a group or not a group, how do they get all of this information? Because, you know, I don't know what's out there. I don't know what's on this spreadsheet that these people receive. And again, being a victim of identity theft, that's even more troubling that my state is giving my information freely for people to challenge me in this capacity. I'm just.
Well, Ms. Harris, it's not free. People can buy the voter list from the state of Georgia.
You can buy the voter list from the state of Georgia.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody can buy the vote. Wow. You just took me for another.
So we've been at this a while. I really appreciate you coming down. I hope you will stay tuned on this particular issue because, again, I have made repeated pleas that we all find a way to make recommendations that either the Secretary of State's office make regulations that are clear or the General Assembly make changes to this. But this is part of Senate Bill 202. It has made everybody's life very challenging, not to overuse a word. But do you have something?
Yes, I sincerely apologize for you receiving the notice and you having to report here today. I do apologize for the inconvenience. We sent you that letter in error. The two people that are considered out of county, I just consulted with my colleague. You all were not supposed to receive the correspondence, and you are one of the two. So our apology for sending the notice. I just looked you up in the system. You are currently registered in Clayton County. You were not supposed to be here today, so our sincerest apology. We mailed you the notice in error. It was two people on the list of 1,000 and something that were not supposed to get it, and you were one of the two. Sorry, Ms. Harris.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
But we are very glad you came, and thank you for coming and just talking through how you felt about this process and how it has
Yes,
impacted you.
It's definitely gonna make me become more active in some things because there's a lot of things. This needs to change.
Yeah.
It needs to change.
It does.
And
But do, if you have a minute, we'll try to get through this. If you have a minute to stick around and see if our staff can help you with that other issue, we'd like to try. But
thank you.
if we can take it, if you can take that away with you, hopefully it will have been time well spent.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's move on. We ready for a motion?
Have you finished all of his?
I believe that is,
Ms. Mitch, is that all?
For that particular one, for the business addresses, I
Right.
think that was the only, yeah.
okay, so we need a motion to accept the challenge of the 143. Oh, wait, we were
Oh, we were on the
gonna make a
August
motion
8th
on
one.
giving them a letter, right?
Right.
Okay.
And what's our date?
Right. The date is August the 10th in order to be in compliance with the federal government. But if you stay on your regular meeting date of August the 11th, you can still adjudicate those as long as we have received the information, because that's the date by which they had to submit their registration. So their registration cutoff date would be the 10th. So they would have
Midnight.
to the 10th to go ahead and submit the information to you, and then you could look at it on the 11th without being in violation of any rule. We just couldn't set
Because the
that date.
recommendation coming forward would be based on information,
That was submitted by the deadline.
so the actual date of, okay.
Right.
We comfortable with that?
The 10th.
The last date would be the 10th rather than the 8th.
Yep.
Would that be enough time for you to turn it around since our meeting is on the 11th?
Yes, and also track the notices of responses and non-responses.
Okay. So I need some help here because we've said a lot today.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that what's the big word? Delay?
We are deferring.
Defer. The 1043 from Mr. Frazier, the 1,043 challenges from Mr. Frazier until August 10th,
To give the parties, the
to
voters
give parties
notice.
time to respond. I see Mr. Frazier nodding.
And
He's not- okay.
reject the 2 out-of-county
Yes.
challenges?
And we will reject the 2 that are currently out of county.
That's correct.
I second that motion.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Okay, moving on to the next one. Do we have another one?
Yes, you have 2 more.
So challenge number 7, there were 6 issues.
Could you refer us to the correct page for that?
It's the one with just the number 6. I'm sorry, I
Page
don't have a book.
176.
176, page 176, number of voters 6. Okay.
So on June 29th, Mr. Frazier requested an update or resubmitted the challenge of 6 electors that he previously submitted at the March hearing. So the board approved the removal of those voters in March. At that time, I placed them in challenge status, meaning if they went in to vote, then they would have to submit a updated voter registration application and vote a provisional ballot. None of those voters did. And as of yesterday, I personally placed all 6 voters in cancel hearing status. So that's the appropriate process. They have been canceled now, Mr. Frazier.
So we don't need to take action on this, you're just notifying us? Okay.
Yes.
Can I just, for the minutes, on the Ms. Wharton, it says the date last voted November 3rd, 2022. I'm kind of assuming you mean a different date.
Yes, so,
Can you
yes,
just change that for our minutes?
I will,
To
yes,
reflect the
ma'am.
correct number, okay. Okay, next one.
Sorry, my question is, you have two people that are on this list in active status to the January 5th election into that 2021, and they haven't voted in another federal election. So why should we take those two?
Because they were challenged by Mr. Frazier. So this whole process, and I don't want to go into my personal beliefs, but it's just a waiting process. So after someone is in inactive cross-state status, that means that they're more than likely cross-state, or if they're in a no contact, that means that we haven't had any contact with them, and they will be canceled. They'll be canceled as of November this year. But Mr. Frazier would like for them to be canceled before then. So I'm assuming that's why he submitted this information.
But you were referring to the active.
I'm referring to the two active that voted in January of 2021.
So okay, so 3 are inactive, 2 are in, okay, when you say inactive, I heard, because that's a different.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the two that are active, Eric Kravitz and Kimberly Sperling, who voted in January 5th, 2021, both of them, they haven't come up to their second.
But the reason why we're canceling them is not for voter participation history. It's more so because they're not registered at a residential address. And in March, you guys approved the waiting process, kind of like what we just did for the last business addresses, and they did not respond, so they have been placed in cancel hearing status.
Okay, now I understand that. All right, thank you.
You're welcome, Mr.
Okay. Next.
Any questions on that one, Mr. Frazier? Good? Okay.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
One more before the last one. Mr. Frazier submitted a list of 71 names that were similar to the Lee Street addresses or issues, sorry. They are registered at imaginary addresses or abandoned homes or parking lots. I also sent this list to our Fulton County GIS department, and it was verified that those addresses are invalid. So provided the findings brought forth by Mr. Frazier, and being that we were able to verify them, we would like to go ahead and remove those 71 voters from the voter rolls.
Okay, so we approved the removal in March, so we don't have to do anything, you're just notifying us.
No, this is different from the last one. So the other one was approved in March, but this is another challenge, the 8th of the 9th. And it's, yes, we need a decision on this one today. The 71 is separate.
Okay, but it says in your recommendations that we approve the removal at the March challenge hearing?
Correction on there.
Okay.
Yes, I was dealing with a lot of documents and trying to compile. So please disregard, for record purposes, the registrar recommendations in this box.
Okay.
There are the recommendation is at the bottom in red under additional findings. I recommend a removal. My apology.
That's all right. Is there anyone in the audience that is impacted on this list? I don't believe that there is, but I just want to make sure. Okay. Okay, motion, question, well, first questions.
Can I ask a question at this point?
Do you have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess procedural, I'm very curious why, or maybe there's no process to check if an address exists when people are registered to vote, but it's surprising to me that this many people are registered at addresses that simply don't exist. There's no tax record for a house. There's no real house number. It just surprises me that these are being added, and I guess the same thing goes with the PO boxes. The system is set up to where it has a notification that it's a business address or a PO box. They should never exist for me to ever challenge for this to be a lot of work to remove them. It's a lot of work for me to find. I mean, it's just a lot of work, and
It is a lot of work.
I would just rather it never happen, and that way I don't find it, you don't have to clean it up, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe that process doesn't exist, but it'd be great if somebody would check an address to see if an address is an address when they register.
So currently, when a voter registered to vote, during my leadership, we look every address up on the GIS map, or if we cannot verify through the GIS map, we reach out to the department and they assist us with ensuring. But I would like to note that a lot of these people registered back in 2012, 2011, and the process may not have been as proficient as it is now. I would also like to state that 42 of these 71 voters have never even voted. So more than likely, these are people, or honestly, these are people that have registered and, I mean, they've never shown up to a poll before. So a lot of this information is older than 10 years before Mr. Frazier and I even got into what we're doing now. So all I can do is assure that the process that we are using now, outside of the people that voted within the last, 2 or 3 years, we are, sending them correspondence, because I did see some confirmation notices that were mailed to some of these voters. They just have time to respond before they're canceled. And the list maintenance is done by the state in the ERIC system. But if they're brought forward, then they could be canceled quicker. But, I mean, that's just the process.
So it sounds like the process is robust now to where if somebody puts a street address that doesn't exist, they wouldn't be registered, if they'd be questioned and get the right address.
That is correct. So now, currently, if a person registers to vote, and if they submit an address that is not valid, we would let them know that we cannot verify this address, that we need another address.
Excellent.
Okay. Questions? Motion. Lunch. Is there a motion? We're almost there. Hang in there, folks.
Okay, I'll make the motion to remove the 71 voters being challenged.
Uphold the challenge.
To
Uphold the
this
challenge.
challenge.
I'm sorry. I got to get the words right. Let me write this down.
That's okay, this is all new for all of us.
Yep. We'll be working through this.
Uphold the challenge of the 71 voters for Mr. Frazier.
Is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. One opposed. The motion carries. All right, next.
Okay, 9 of 9. This last category, Mr. Frazier, he submitted a list of 107 presumed deceased people. And in speaking with legal, it was recommended that we go through the normal deceased process, which is to cancel people deceased once we are able to verify. But because of 2 emails that I have received this morning, what I would recommend is we allow the family members, which is what I initially kind of wanted to do, because I feel like we should allow the family members of these people or someone to respond, because I just got 3 emails stating that these people are not deceased. So as the chief registrar, I don't feel comfortable canceling people deceased without giving someone the opportunity to respond, because we have canceled people in the past as deceased and then they show up to vote for early voting. So provided the findings brought forth by Mr. Frazier, I recommend that we allow either these people, in which 3 have responded just this morning, or the family members of them to respond maybe by that same August 10th date for verification before we remove them. And what I would like to say is, per this recommendation, also in speaking with legal, the obituaries that Mr. Frazier provided, of course, is of a grave site, and then the name and the date of birth could be the same, but then I just got an email where it's another situation where a voter is like, my mom is 99 years old, she is alive and well, and I just looked the mother up and she actually just voted, so, yeah.
So your recommendation is for 106 of these that we deny the challenge, and one of them isn't canceled, and so we accept the challenge for that one, or do we just?
And I need to make a correction, and I'm glad Mr. Hubert's not here. We have cross-referenced this new statute. If you want, or you have any questions about these people, you need to go ahead and continue our defer to the August 10th date. Because once you do rule denying it, it does send them to the court. So it goes back to the old ways. And I would like to, after this matter is over, to request that the board, because of not correct advice, reconsider the position you took on Mr. Hubert, since his was a documentation issue, and do the same thing we're doing, is defer it to the next meeting. So I'd like to make the deferral here because we don't have adequate information. We haven't notified everybody. They haven't had a chance to respond. And if we had a chance to do that, some of these may go away.
Okay. All right, so we want a motion on this to defer the 106 voters that are being challenged and deny the one voter that's already in canceled status. Is that correct?
Uphold his challenge to that one voter, that's correct.
Yep.
So wait a minute, are you trying to deny this? You're not?
Oh, wait, yeah, sorry.
If you're having him come
I'm
back.
getting tired.
Defer.
The motion is to defer the 106 to the August 10th meeting.
Yes.
Pending
To
more
give them notice.
research and notice. And uphold the challenge to the one voter that is already in canceled status.
So it's 105 being deferred and 1.
Nope, 106 being deferred and 1 being upheld.
That number at the bottom,
Oh,
she doesn't
107,
include the.
sorry, I'm sorry.
Somebody want to make that motion?
I learned that a minute ago.
Okay.
Somebody want to make the
I
motion?
will make the motion to defer the 106 voters being challenged to the August meeting, August 11th meeting, and accept the challenge to the one, Mary Thompson.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Properly
I was double checking our attorney. to make sure
Properly
she didn't say
moved
no.
and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Okay, we've moved through that. And which one did you want us to reconsider now?
I would like for the board to, someone on the board, to make a motion to reconsider the action you took on Mr. David Hubert's challenge.
That was the first
And that
one.
was on page 132, and it was number, he had 42 42 votes, challengers being submitted. And the recommendation of the staff is still okay with regard to the 6 that you all voted to uphold his challenge. But I'd like for you to defer a decision to your August meeting on the
22.
22? Okay. I'll take your number. I couldn't get 42 out of that, so, but the main thing is to defer the rest of them. If you take 6 from 42, leaves 36. 1 was registered in another county, that left 30. And 8 was the fact that they had notified they were already in canceled status, and he knew that, so that leaves 22. And 1 he withdrew, no, 10 have total. Is that 10 total, Ms. Marshall, have been withdrawn by the challenger?
One moment.
I'm looking at the number 1 in box 15, withdrawn by challenger lack of evidence. In the box with 18, 9 withdrawn by challenger lack of evidence, which makes 10.
Yes.
Okay. And then you had voters were removed from challenge, but their names were listed. Those are the 8 I took out. Okay, so that's 10. So that's 12 voters.
Right.
To defer a decision on those 12 voters, to reconsider your previous vote, to allow him the time to resubmit the information, rather than not upholding it, which is what we did the first time. The vote was inconsistent because I gave you information that he could bring the matter back to you, and not that your matter and decision is final and it needs to go to the court.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Hibbert.
The motion is to
corrected it.
reconsider
Reconsider.
the motion that we made
Action you took, yeah.
to Mr. Hubert's challenge regarding the 42 names that were submitted. Can we just do that?
Yes.
Is that clear enough?
And then you have to go back, yeah.
So would
That's the
somebody do
first
that?
thing, is to
Okay.
reconsider.
Reconsider it?
That's the motion I'm making.
The motion
That's
is to
the motion.
reconsider
Is to reconsider
the motion
the motion
that we passed.
that we
on-
passed on David Hubert's list of 42 names.
Is there a second? Just do it.
I second the
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. That motion passes. Now,
Okay.
the proper motion that we would like to consider would be that we uphold the challenge to the 6 voters that the registrar recommended, and that we defer the rest of the voters to our
The
August
August
10th
11th.
meeting for further research and notification.
That's fine.
So I make a motion that we uphold the 6 removals that are registered in Florida from the 42 challengers from Mr. Hubert, and hear the remainder at our August 10th meeting in order to provide substantial time for evidence.
Is that good?
That's fine, that will work.
Is there a second? Properly moved and
Second.
seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There are none. The motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I wanted to actually commend your staff for, in the amount of time they've received these voluminous challenges, the work that has gone in to look at the information, compare the information with the Secretary of State's office from across the country that they were given, and to make certain that these parties were, to the extent possible, satisfying any type of criteria that our state has set up. They did a phenomenal job, and their goal has always been to provide an accurate voter list, and they did that, and they conferred with legal, and in some cases that required more notification because of our decisions being in conflict with the Secretary of State's office. So I want to thank them publicly because they did a lot of abuse. This is not Fulton County's problem, it's the Secretary of State's database, and everybody's got a part in trying to get it cleaned up.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that you said that. And again, Ms. Marshall, I don't know how you've stood in the gap for the last 6 months with redistricting and all the other things your team has done, but thank you so very much. And thank you for attending to the 2 women that are here today and helping them get through their challenges, because that matters as well. Okay, do we have a need to go into executive session?
No, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
None.
Okay, we'll just move on from there. Is there a motion to adjourn?
There's a motion.
Second.
Properly moved in second, third, and fourth. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? There are none. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Thanks so much to the staff. We appreciate your diligence, and to those who came to the meeting.